Okay, I hope this will. Now I'm questioning it. Oh boy. I'm trying a new way of recording this on Zoom. All right. Welcome everybody to, I don't know what solo episode this is. I don't know what VonSolo episode this is. I'm recording it Sunday. What month is it? April? May. It's May. It's going to be May. Oh boy, that's so embarrassing. Okay, well, let's just start out with that embarrassing thing. I don't know my months. I kind of know my months. I know my months in the same way I know my ABCs, whereas like I know my ABCs, but I have to sing the song because like as a kid, I was such a weirdo. If you couldn't prove to me that it was going to be worth learning stuff, I just refused, and it just never went in my head. And my months are the same way where I know them all, but I kind of have to walk through it like almost like singing the ABCs, like trying to everyone, to get to where I am, and it makes it real rough just to keep track of where you are in the year. Like I know it's pre-summer right now, all those months after February, it kind of just all mushes together till June. And then you got the 3J months, June, July, August, even though it's 2J months, but like the 3 summer months that I know. And then I know September, October, November, December, January, February really well. But in between that, it's a little foggy in the old Nick brain here. That's kind of embarrassing. Great way to start this out. Welcome to the first solo episode, I think in probably a month and a half. It has been some crazy up and downs since then. I've started a new podcast since then with my best friend Chase, Oilers Uncensored. It's probably one of the funnest things I've got going right now. I really enjoy it. It's been a real highlight. With everything else kind of happening, everything else going on that we'll definitely get into here. I tried to do one solo episode in between that didn't go well. I sat here in the same spot and railed for probably 30 minutes, and it was emotional, and there was anger, and there was sadness, and there was a lot of even just like thinking back to it and stuff. And this might be another tough one. There's a lot to talk about, and a lot of a lot of really high highs and a lot of really low lows, and some of like the lowest lows that I've had in a very long time. But I want to talk about them, and I'm going to try and figure out a way to get through them, because that trying to sit down, getting halfway through a solo episode like that and to just quit on it felt awful. And it didn't feel like, it felt like I was quitting it because I knew I couldn't release it because of other people and what they would think of it. And that kills me because I hate doing that, because I don't care. I would have released that. I'm actually really mad I deleted it and didn't save it, because I think it would be interesting to me in the future. And I don't know, maybe if anybody else cared, maybe to them too, but it was just interesting. But I learned a lot of lessons from it. And I think I learned with ones that are going to be really tough. I think I got to start off with a little bit something to get me into it, which is why for this solo episode, I'm going to start. I know I usually do my UFC stuff at the end so people can skip right through it. I'm going to go back through the last pretty much month and a half since we talked last on this solo episode like this, and really take you through it line by line of what I've been experiencing and what I've been going through, and be as vulnerable as I can. But before that, I think I'm just going to go through last night. It's Sunday the 8th, and they had the pay-per-view card last night for the UFC, and just kind of do my little UFC stuff, talk about that, because I always love talking about it. And for the couple of people that are nerds like me and love that sport, they can listen to it. If not, you can just skip ahead till you hear me stop talking about fighting, and then you can jump back in. Probably won't be too far in, but I just figured I would kind of walk through it. So yeah, yesterday there was lots of hockey, had lots of ways, and I'm sure as I go through, everything that's gone through, we'll catch back up to this time, and it might be a little bit of a start and finish on UFC, because that's what happened last night. And that's where the story will kind of end up. But start off great fights. Lupe Godinez was second fight, and I missed the first fight. I was, as you guys will hear, I got some baby time, which is my favorite thing in the world. That will be a big part of this podcast, probably, is that my mad baby fever that I'm working through at the moment. But I was a little busy with the kiddo, so I missed the first fight, but then caught the Lupe Godinez fight. She's a Mexican fighter that I believe fought out of Canada, because for a while they were putting a Mexican flag and a Canadian flag up by her name. And I haven't seen the last couple fights for her. She's just been rocking the Mexico, but she came out like a bat out of hell. Unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-26, 30-26. So two judges gave her a 10-8 round. I gave her a 10-8 round. She just absolutely dominated this chick, this Carnelosi chick, who is, in the last Oilers Uncensored podcast we did, I was talking about this chick that had the biggest shoulders I've ever seen. Like unbelievable for a strawweight. Her shoulders were like the size of mine. It blew my mind. But I kept calling her Tracy Cortez, who fought a couple fights later, who's this unbelievably gorgeous fight and talented fighter as well, who dates Brian Ortega, and has a ton of followers, and like is a not in terms of like where she is in the fight game, but like in terms of notoriety, she's a very big deal. And I think I kept saying that she was the one with the big shoulder, so apologies to her. I had it wrong. It was this Carnelossi that Godinez fought, but absolutely just put her down. And that Carnelossi with the big shoulders has been, I think this might have been her debut in the UFC, but she was knocking people out all the way through her pro career. So it was an amazing fight for Lupi, and I think that's going to kind of move her up into a really interesting position within that kind of strawweight picture. Then we got CJ Vergara Rodriguez. That was a great fight. Vergara's a guy off the Contender Series who has lots of heart, won a split decision, really good fight. And then we got to that Tracy Cortez. She won a unanimous decision. She's from Phoenix and was just a crowd favorite, really put on a good show, got the crowd going. Then Fialio had a really nice knockout left hook. That was really fun to watch. The Blagoy Ivanov Rogério de Lima fight, I think I watched the hockey game through the whole thing. It was a snooze fest. Sorry, guys, but I'm going to be honest with what happened. Sorry, UFC. Then was the fight I was really excited for a long time. I'm pretty sure this fight has fallen apart a bunch of times before. It was Brandon Royval versus Matt Schnell, and I didn't know this going in, but they were mentioning it, that Matt Schnell actually lost his mom or his grandma, someone really close to him, like in the fight camp leading up, didn't drop out of the fight, went in, came out like a bat out of hell. These are two of the top flyweights in the world, and you knew it was going to be a good fight. Did really well. I think maybe knocked Royval down. He had a guillotine attempt of his own. He popped out of it. Royval grabbed him in his guillotine and he tapped him in. I've never seen someone tap to a guillotine that fast. And he tapped with both hands. It was like a desperation tap. And it was like maybe 3-4 seconds in the choke. That's exaggerating. It's a fight that's a long time in a fight. It's maybe like, 1 or 2 seconds in the fight that feels like 3 or 4, but it was really interesting. Meishi Chiasson won a split decision versus Norm Dumont. It was an all right fight. I don't know. Didn't suck me in, but it was all right. Then Francisco Trinaldo, the guy I talked about on the podcast, that Brazilian legend that I was questioning his age. I think he's 43, but with guys like that, it's like, I don't know if this guy's like 50 and just saying he's 43 because he has been the same age he looks like for the last 10 years and seems to be reverse aging in the way he's fighting. He won a unanimous decision, had him rocked a bunch of times. It was really good to see. Then you jump to the main card, which was a bummer because the main card was supposed to be kicked off by, I don't know if you guys can see him above my left shoulder, the bobblehead of Cowboy Cerrone. He was like my OG favorite fighter. I loved Cowboy. I still do love Cowboy. But since I was a kid, when I was sneaking to watch this stuff because my parents hated it, my mom physically cannot even watch fighting on TV. She like gets physically sick to her stomach. She thinks it's just the grossest thing. So as much as I loved fighting growing up, I didn't get to watch a lot of it, but those guys like John Jones and Cowboy were the ones that I would do whatever I had to do, and a lot of the time, if it was a pay-per-view, it ended up going out to Cody Twins, who was on the reserve, who has been on this podcast. I think we talked about this, which was a couple of years older. And when you're young, a couple of years doesn't seem like a big deal now looking back on it. But when you're, I don't know, 12 and they're all 14, like they're so old. And I was always so intimidated to go to Cody's place and watch the fights with the guys. They kind of had a crew that liked MMA and would watch them and would buy the pay-per-view cards. But I loved it so much. I'd even go, even though I just remember to this day being so intimidated by it. I remember like playing pool with them and stuff. And it's just, those are the older cool guys. And I was just, fly on the wall for it. But he ended up getting food poisoning really bad and apparently couldn't fight. And it's Cowboy. He would have fought if there's any way. And I think the commission just wouldn't let him fight. And that was a bit of a bummer to find that out during the day. But they moved up this Chaos Williams, Roundy Brown fight, which was an awesome decision by the UFC's part. It kicked off the card in an amazing way. It was a super good fight. Just Randy Brown is this new level of fighter that has this striking that's so unique to him. But so crisp, and he was getting really cocky with it, just this sliding out style, and he got clipped hard by Chaos Williams, sat down and kind of changed the direction of that fight. He had a really tough round after that, but then he snapped in, was on his P's and Q's for the rest of the fight. And even though you got a taste of that knockdown by Williams, so you're always on the edge of your seat. Is he going to get clipped again doing this crazy style where he's just avoiding punches by the slimmest of margins, but he was completely on his game, slid out of the way of almost everything and pieced him up for the rest of the fight. Had him wobbled a couple times. Randy Brown had Chaos Williams wobbled a couple times after that, and I think Chaos might have hit Randy one more time good, but the rest of the fight was pretty much back in his favor, and he won at 29-28 after getting dropped really hard really early on the fight. Then they had the legend Mauricio Shogun Hua, who was again one of those guys that I used to like. I remember sneaking out to watch John Jones fight Shogun for the title, like when John Jones was on his first run. Like, and I was just a little kid at this time, and to see him still fighting at the age he is, it was unbelievable. And then Ovince St. Preux, who was a football player, I think he came through. Yeah, I think he played for, I don't know if it was NFL or played like college football and then transferred. He's fought John Jones as well. He's been always around. He's been up at heavyweight, came back down light heavyweight. They had I hate MMA crowds. I love this sport. I hate the crowds. Like they booed them pretty much the whole time. And it was a great little fight. Like it was definitely an old school fight, kind of how you would have seen fighters fight back in Shogun's day. And Shogun kind of slowed it down to that pace, lots of leg kicks, like blitzing in, but a lot of nothingness and just throwing weak feints at each other in between the blitzes. And the crowd really didn't like it. I rarely dislike a fight, and this is going to be foreshadowing for what happened later in, but I didn't think it was that bad of a fight. The crowd was going nuts. The commentators saying, "Oh, it's kind of boring," but it was an all right fight. It was a split decision. Ovince St. Preux took it, and it almost didn't matter because you knew what the next fight was. It's Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Michael Chandler, he's been in the UFC for 3 fights now. Came in from Bellator. He was always my favorite fighter outside the UFC. Anytime anybody would ask me, who are you excited to see come over to the UFC? Before Ben Askren got traded in the UFC, I should say, or after, I guess, because it was always Ben Askren was the first one, but then Michael Chandler. And that was just me parroting other people because I always heard Rogan and Schaub talk about Ben Askren, but I never really watched Ben Askren. I just had heard he was that guy, so I'd always use that. But like my guy was Chandler. I loved watching Michael Chandler fight. I remember watching when I had I don't know if I was graduating university or maybe I was home for a summer, but I was really, really loving MMA and like getting deep into it, listening to lots of the interweek kind of like media stuff for MMA. And I was super excited for this Bellator card. It had, who was fighting? Fyodor Emelianenko was fighting, what's his pick? I can picture him, Matt Mitrione. And Chandler was fighting Brent Primus, and there was another big fight on that card. And it was one of the rare pay-per-views for Bellator. So I paid for this fight. And my dad, I don't know, just because I paid for it or whatever it was, but he got interested and he sat down. I remember watching this fight with Michael Chandler versus Brent Primus. And it was the first time we got to see that weird nerve get kicked in the leg on like the back of your calf that like makes you lose control of lifting your foot. So Chandler kept like rolling his ankle and it looked so nasty. Me and my dad are screaming like, ew, like losing our mind. Watching this, the referee stops the fight. And I knew enough about MMA at that point with the rule set that was in place. I said, oh no, they stopped the fight. They can't restart it. Like, and it was kind of a younger ref, or the ref didn't really know what he's doing. It was all this chaos. And at one point in it, Michael Chandler is on his stool and is like, "Oh, this bullshit can't stop. Like I can fight." And he stands up to show that he can fight and he's going to push through because Michael Chandler wouldn't quit on nothing, right? And his coach, trying to do the same thing, probably like lifts up the stool, and then Chandler like goes to sit back down. There's no stool and he eats shit, like just sits on his ass on the canvas. And me and my dad both saw it and laughed our asses off. It's like one of my core MMA memories is watching us laugh our asses off at Michael Chandler falling on the stool and the stool not being there because his coach picked it up. Like, oh, it was so great. Anyway, I'm getting on a tangent, but I've been watching Michael Chandler forever. So when he finally made it over to the UFC and got thrown in right at the top of the lightweight division against the Kiwi there. What's his pickle? He's one of my favorite fighters. I'm amazingly stupid. Dan Hooker. Against Dan Hooker, which is, so many people were mad at him. Tony Ferguson, who he fought last night, was super mad that he got to come in, cut the line. Chandler's a real company guy and loves the UFC and loves Dana White and really speaks in all the ways that the UFC wants you to. Doesn't say anything out of left field. Just company man through and through, and got rewarded for it. So got that fight against Dan Hooker. Then he got to fight Charles Oliveira, who was the main event last night for the title right after, because he knocked out Dan Hooker. Lost to Oliveira in a crazy fight because he had Oliveira really hurt in the first, but then Oliveira is just a new beast and came back and beat him. And then Chandler got to fight Justin Gaethje, who fought Oliveira last night for the title. So he had fought, the whole top end of the lightweight division, had that fight of the year with Gaethje, lost that one. So he came into the UFC, beat Hooker, then lost 2 in a row, and now was coming in against Tony Ferguson, who was so mad that he got to skip the line and get those big fights right after walking into the UFC. And say what you will, but Michael Chandler's resume spoke for itself. He was the Bellator champion forever. Like he deserved to jump the line, but guys like Tony Ferguson that was on a 12-fight win streak and never got a shot at the belt, or got hurt. Anyway, he just felt mistreated, and for some good reason. They go in, and it was exciting in this build up for this Michael Chandler Tony Ferguson fight, because Ferguson is crazy as fuck, full on 100% certifiably cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But we've known this for a long time. And the last couple fights he was going off the deep end of like normal Tony crazy into just pure crazy. And it was kind of tough to watch, and wasn't all that lucid, and his fighting didn't look all that great. And he was kind of getting beat up worse and worse every fight. But then this fight week, he's still crazy. He's still Tony Ferguson, but he seemed a little bit more there and a little bit sharper, a little bit, I don't know. The crazy things you were saying made sense a little bit, because like Tony's always saying crazy shit, but at least it kind of makes sense. Like, oh, you're out of left field, but you're making rational points within the crazy. And for a while there, he wasn't. It was just like, this is nonsense. And it was a spectacle, and it was fun to watch. And he's a crowd favorite. People love him, but it was interesting to see, okay, well, is the old Tony Ferguson that was on that 12-fight win streak going to show up? And he did. That first round, he had Chandler hurt. Chandler had him hurt. They're back and forth. The wrestling scrambles, the old school Tony we remember was just unbelievable. And everyone kind of woke up and was like, holy shit. And the crowd is going nuts in Phoenix. Phoenix is just a great crowd all the time, but it is completely washing out the Shogun Ovince Prue fight. That was kind of boring. It was just like, that was kind of boring to reset the card so that everyone could get this excited for Michael Chandler to Tony Ferguson. At the end of the first round, you can see Tony gets that crazy grin on his face, like, oh, I'm in a war. Let's go. Like, I am meant to be here, and I'm going to come out, right? Like, and he gives Chandler a little slap on the ass, and you can tell they're both like, yeah, no, this is what we came here for. Let's give this crowd what they came here for. And they came out in the second round, and 17 seconds into the second round, I saw for my money, probably the grossest knockout I've ever seen. Like, beautiful too, like beautiful technique, amazing spectacle to watch, like when you love the sport. But I'm still a human at the end of the day, and I was grossed the fuck out. Like, I saw it connect, land. I saw what hit him. I was watching it with Chase, and I think Chase, it was so quick. I think Chase kind of missed the initial what hit him, and they weren't showing the replay because Tony was down so bad. As Tony rushed in, Chandler just did through a front, and it wasn't even a front kick, because a front kick like Vitor got knocked out by Anderson Silva is kind of a snappy, like you lean back, you kind of like crane kick, what you see like martial arts. This is just a full like you kicked a football, or you're in a crowd of people and there's a volleyball bouncing around, and you see it come to you, and you just are going to kick that fucker so hard into the air, like you're trying to get it to just see what record 100 feet you can kick this ball into the air. And that's what he did to his chin. And it was so hard, so flush. Tony went down just in the grossest heap and was down for like minutes. And Chandler's just doing backflips and, just milking it up on the cage, which is amazing. And I love to see it for him. But it was a tough look to watch. I'm kind of sitting there, my stomach doesn't feel good. And like, this is the thing when people talk to me, like my mom, and said like, oh, how can you watch this stuff? It's like, yeah, that happens from time to time. And when it does happen, like I'm not immune to that. I just have all the other appreciation of the other stuff that counters that out. But it doesn't mean I didn't have some really icky feelings in myself, because I love Tony too. You don't want to see him down like that. And he's never been knocked out before. I should have started with that. Like, we've seen Tony get finished, and we've seen him, get TKO'd and stuff, but he's always there. And doesn't matter how bad Tony's beat up, he's going to dispute the stoppage every time, because he's going to say, I could have kept going, right? Like, that's who Tony's been. But to see him get knocked out clean like that was really scary. And luckily, a couple of minutes pass. Finally, he gets up, and he's, where am I? But you could see lights come on, and that doesn't mean you're out of danger, right? Like, still, amazing. Usually if someone's gonna, this is tough to talk about, but if someone's gonna pass away from a fight, usually it's gonna happen that night. They go to the hospital that night, and they're gonna pass that night. And if they get through the night, they're usually good. And if they wake up, and So that's why I feel like I can kind of speak to it that, okay, we avoided it. We're good because I'm speaking today and thankfully nothing has happened. But even so, you see him get up and that's the first sign that he's up and he's conscious. He's talking to people and then they replay it. And then you see this replay of this crazy kick because they're not going to show a replay and then until they know the guy wakes up. That is just UFC. That's how they roll. That's always been how they are. And that's what I told Chase, because Chase is like, why aren't they showing replay? I'm like, they never show replays until the guy regains consciousness. That's just their MO. And we see this crazy kick, and it was like just truly spectacular. Like it's hard to put words to what it was. Like there's so much to it. It's so gross, but so amazing at the same time. And yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you guys will see replays of it. And I'm sure when me and Chase do our next Oilers Uncensored, we're going to have a little bit of a bullshit chat because Chase is a big MMA fan too. Yeah, it was wild. Then you roll into Rose Namajunas, Carla Esparza, who is two of my favorite fighters of all time. No, sorry, two of my favorite fighters. I'm thinking Justin and Rose, like the Trevor Whitman fighters are two of my favorites. Carla, I like Carla. Kind of feel a bit of a nothing burger towards her. She, I appreciate her career. I appreciate what she does, but she's never grabbed me as a fan and just, gave me that performance. She did her last win before Namajunas was really nice. But again, I still stand by it. Not too crazy for her. Appreciate her. And Rose comes out and they start this fight. And Rose is so much faster, so much better than her. She's throwing feints. She's making Carla second guess on everything. But, Rose is just terrified that she's going to get taken down and held down because that's what Carla does. I think Carla might have thrown one shot in the first round, like a takedown shot. Didn't get it, pop right back up. And then you kind of think, oh, is Rose going to go more into it and start? And it turned out the whole fight just was the same thing. Rose sticking on the outside, throwing lots of feints, kind of shutting down every piece of offense Carla can throw, because every time she goes to throw a punch or goes to shoot in for a takedown, she's reading these feints and biting on it. And to me, watching, it was interesting the whole time. It was, you could clearly see that Rose is so much better than Carla in every aspect of the fight. Like it looked like it was one of the biggest skill discrepancies you could see, but nothing was happening. They threw like 6 to 10 punches combined per round, and Carla probably shot a takedown attempt once, maybe twice a round, and Rose either stuffed it or popped right back up every time. Like it was complete nothing burger. And to me, that doesn't even count. Like I don't give you any credit for attempting a takedown and getting it, stuff like that. To me, what I had issue with and what's tough to talk about is the commentary. I hated the commentary. It was so bad. It was making me angry to hear Joe Rogan, who's my favorite. You guys all know I'm diehard, and I hate because people have hated on Rogan's commentary for so long for no reason, just because they don't like him. It's just tall poppy syndrome, and there hasn't been much real criticism of him that actually passes any sort of test when you call people on it. But this was bad, and so was DC. Oh, and they did DC's induction in the Hall of Fame. That was beautiful. I love to watch it. I love DC. Actually, I'll cover DC after the fights because I do want to get into that. But they're just saying this is the worst fight of all time. This is so gar. How can you even? And they just wouldn't stop. They wouldn't talk about any of the aspects of the fight. They just got so stuck in this loop of just talking about how terrible it was. They completely ruined the fight. The fight was bad. Don't get me wrong. It was boring for a casual and like what the crowd wanted. And the crowd was booing it the whole time, right? But like me as an MMA fan watching the technique and like what Rose was doing, I wasn't that bored the whole time. And there's lots of fights where I'm not bored, but everyone around me watching is like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, right? And I got so many texts from people after me, like, oh, this fight is the worst, everyone. And I'm like, yeah, but how could you ever think anything else with this commentary going where they're just ripping on them? And I'm like, oh, this was just such a terrible look. Like, it doesn't help anything. Like, your job as a commentator, yeah, it's bad, but you don't need to just pile onto it and ruin any chance it has of ever been. There were so many times where Rose landed punches, but they were so busy ragging on the fight that they didn't even acknowledge it. It was bullshit. I was getting so goddamn mad at that commentary. And sure enough, Rose got the decision, or Carla got the decision. Rose is blown away. She thought she won the fight 5-0. And honestly, the way I scored it, and I am so biased, so I'm going to admit this right off the hop. I'm very biased. I had it like 4-1 for Rose. I thought there was maybe one round where Carla won just because there was so little output that the very tiny nothing burger half attempt takedown there was, and maybe one punch she landed was enough to win her one round. But that was like her total output for one fight. The whole fight happened in one round where Rose was doing not much either and not throwing many punches, but was in complete control the whole time, right? When you really understand at a deep level. And I don't know. I was going in angry. So then you have the main event, who's Charles Oliveira, who's this kid we've seen in the UFC for a decade, came in super young, super talented out of the favelas of Brazil, no money, like complete rags to riches. And we'd see him in the UFC and he would show these glimpses of being this unbelievable force at the 145 weight class. And then he would get beat up. He'd see some adversity. He would kind of quit. And then he'd come back and he'd put on a little streak. And then you'd see that adversity come back and he'd quit. And he had some troubles with the weight, with the scale at 145, ended up moving up to 155, and then just went on a tear. It looked like a new, and which makes sense because he was so young when he was going through that, but he kind of came into his body a little bit and came into his mind and started to become more of a professional and started to gain some belief. And each fight he got better and better. At every point throughout this whole run, everyone's always kind of had a little bit of an inkling of what's going to happen when he gets to this level. What's going to happen when he gets to this level? Is that quit going to reappear? Is that quit going to reappear? And you see him go up against Michael Chandler for that belt that I talked about earlier. And you see Michael Chandler drop him really bad in the first round and goes, okay, this is it. He's going to quit. And he perseveres and goes through it. And then, and wins the belt. And then he's got to defend it against Dustin Poirier, who everyone thought Dustin Poirier is the champ. This is what I'm saying, people, this is what I thought, but it was pretty prevailing, is that Dustin Poirier is the best lightweight in the world. The only reason Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler fought for that belt is because Dustin Poirier said, no, I want the money. I'm going to fight Conor McGregor and you guys go fight for the belt. Whoever wins, I'll beat you because I'm the best. That's what I thought. So I kind of thought, no matter how good Charles has looked, and Charles looks like a world beater, and this is very apparent now with a couple more fights to go off of, but I thought Dustin Poirier is going to smoke him. And again, Dustin had him hurt really bad, and we're all waiting for that quit to come out, and it never does. He comes back and he chokes out Dustin Poirier. And now he's got Justin Gaethje, who I said Justin Gaethje is Oliveira's worst matchup because Oliveira is so good on the ground as well with his submissions, and his hands are getting good, but like, you're not going to take down Justin Gaethje. And Justin Gaethje is going to force you. He's so hard to put away on the feet that you have to almost submit him. And he's going to be there all night and he's going to tire you out and just batter your face in. But he dropped him twice, I think, in the first round. And Oliveira just went back on his back, and he's got such good jiu-jitsu. Justin's not going to follow him down there, which is just genius. So smart. I'm still kind of like blown away by this, and just, took his time to recover, waited for him. Justin let him up. That's 10 seconds. He's back on his feet. And it's not like Oliveira also isn't a threat. He was hurting Gaethje too, his back and forth. But when Gaethje would land and drop him, he'd just lay on his back and go, okay, yeah, no, that hurt, but you don't want to come down here with me. And if you do, perfect. That's what I want. So did that, got dropped, I think, twice, but refused to go down. He pulled guard on Justin once, right? Just got the overhook, locked it in, and just jumped up, pulled him back down, and Gaethje got out of it. And then they got up again, and Oliveira, I think, clipped Gaethje and put him down, or maybe, I think he clipped Gaethje and got him down. He dove on him, tried to maybe go for some sort of submission attempt, guillotine, and just when he got up, jumped to the back. Or maybe he jumped to the back, lost it, and then when he was trying to get up again, jumped to the back again, and then he locks in this choke, and like, Oliveira's jiu-jitsu he has the most submissions in the UFC. He's unbelievable when he gets to that spot. Just like when he got to Dustin Poirier's back, it was like, oh, this is over. And you see Justin fight the hands once, get the choke off his neck, readjust, locks it in, gets it behind the head, and he's going out. And like, nobody ever thought Gaethje would ever tap, and he tapped. And like, usually go out, and he waited so long to tap that he was pretty much, as like the tap was doing, he was going unconscious. So he did like go out, but it was kind of an interesting little tidbit, because I don't think anyone in the world would have ever guessed to see Gaethje tap to anything, which was tough to watch, because as much as I just talked about Oliveira and I didn't really cover Gaethje. Gaethje is another amazing story of just so much drive, and just has sacrificed everything in his life to single-mindedly pursue this goal of becoming a champion has just, just him and his dog. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He doesn't go drinking. He doesn't do anything. He sits in his house, trains all day, plays a bit of video games and smokes weed, goes to bed, does it again the next day, just trains like crazy and is completely 100% dedicated to it. And it would have been nice to see him get it, because it's so hard to get a title shot, let alone the second attempt. And to run into Khabib Nurmagomedov, where you don't have to question, did he do enough? Because I'm sure he did everything he could. He just, on that night, could not beat that guy. And then also to run into Charles Oliveira looking like he is right now, I don't know who beats him. I don't know if Khabib beats him. If I'm honest, I don't think it'll ever happen. I think Khabib's going to stay retired and just coach. But I don't know. We'll see with Islam Makhachev. That's going to be an interesting tale. But I don't think. I think that narrative of, is Charles Oliveira going to quit, needs to be put to bed. And I think after this Makhachev fight, anybody that says that, like if he beats Makhachev too, then for sure it's gone. But if anybody can make him quit, it's Makhachev, right? Like, things are really exciting in the UFC world. And last night was a really fun time to be a UFC fan, and just feels like all the time I've put in over these last years of just becoming so obsessed with the sport is just constantly returned tenfold when you get a night like that, where even as a casual watcher, you're going to enjoy it, but to the level of enjoyment for myself, when you know all the intricate storylines and all the ways that, like, it's amazing, and you just get to enjoy it on such a deeper level. It's just like it's the dividends being paid for the time you put in to become that big of a fan. And maybe people don't have time to listen to 6 different MMA podcasts a week or whatever to enjoy them, but maybe just here, if you're listening to me, I can maybe do a little bit of that job of selling you just that one step further into being that fan, so you get that other step of enjoyment other than just watching this spectacle of violence that anyone that has never seen it before, doesn't understand, doesn't know anybody's name, can enjoy it. But there's so many more levels, and I'm finding, there's always deeper levels. There's always people that are way more into it than me, that are getting way more enjoyment than I am out of it. And that's interesting too. And you find that with everything. It's kind of it's a tale as old as time. Now that I've got that out of the way, and I'm kind of, rolling in my groove, I think that was a little bit smarter than, that last time I told you guys. I think I failed a little bit at trying to do the solo podcast. I tried to jump into the really deep, meaty stuff kind of too early, and kind of ran into a tree a little bit on it. So now I'm going to try and go back to about a month and a half ago, and hit the highlights along the way, and slow down and talk about some things, because tons has happened since then. Some really high highs, really low lows, like I already talked about. But about a month and a half. I'm just trying to find somewhere to start. So early to mid-April, started the Oilers Uncensored podcast, which has been since then probably the highlight of my week. Every weekend, to sit down with my best friend, talk about my favorite team, the Oilers, and like not only to talk with them, but then to be goofballs and to like when I started this journey of being a podcaster, I was so excited to be able to get comfortable enough and to find the right avenues to be able to show myself truly of who I am, like my interesting intellectual sides where I talk about these topics and I kind of get this voice on, and then my big goofball side, like, which I think is so exemplified with this podcast and why I'm so happy with it, of, I'm also a giant fucking idiot, and I love that. And I love enjoying that. And I have nowhere am I a bigger idiot than I'm with my fucking idiot in crime, Chase. And I've, since I started the podcast, I wanted to have him on because I wanted to do that. And I think he heard some of the podcasts that I was having and some of the conversations, like, dude, like, that's not me. Like, what do you want me on here? And I'm like, nah, I don't want to fucking, talk world politics with you. I want to just goof around. But we could never, and we started it with that road trip series, which if anyone, needs a little podcast to get them through, go back and listen to the 3 or 4 episodes we did documenting our road trip to the States. It was a lot of fun, and really that was the impetus for the Oilers Uncensored podcast, because I think that's where we knocked all the awkward rust off of us just being able to find what we do all the time, like the conversation we have all the time, but to be able to do that with the mics in front of us. And it was lots of fun. And when that ended, I was a little bit sad to lose it because I really enjoyed doing it. And then when Chase came to me and said, and it was so funny to watch, and he'll fucking probably never listen to this, so I can speak pretty openly, but he almost looked like nervous to bring the idea up, like the look on his face when he brought up, like, hey, like, like I've always, because he listens to lots of like, not podcasts, but like old man podcasts, because Chase is an old man, like 6:30 Ched type shows, like TSN 1260, like radio guys. He listens to like sports radio. And I think he knew this. I've known this forever, but I don't know if, you never, sometimes when dreams are scary, you don't even acknowledge them in your brain as like a actual thought. But like, I've always known, like, if Chase ever wanted to do sports radio, he would fucking dominate. He's like, just like the personality he has and like the knowledge and just who he is as a person, he would completely run show through any of those fucking nerds trying to do it. Any of those, I don't want to start throwing names out. We don't need to start some beef on the podcast, but if you wanted to, and he just said like, hey, that's always been something I want to try. Like, do you think we could maybe try and do like an Oilers podcast? And I'm like, dude, like, and then he keeps selling it, like, we could do this. I'm like, dude, yes. Like, you had me at, can we, like, I've wanted to do a podcast with you for so long. I don't care if you want to do a fucking golf podcast or whatever it is. I just want to fucking sit down with you once a week and have fun. And I'm sure we're going to, and like, obviously the Oilers podcast is the perfect venue because like, that's something I've also wanted to do is, get a hockey podcast. One of my favorite podcasts is Spit and Chicklets. And I just think there's so much they do amazingly, but there's so much meat on that bone of what people do with hockey podcasts. And they're just really filling the void. And then you have some other ones that are okay, but the way I've seen, like, being a real podcast addict that I've seen like the best of the best in all these other realms, there's no like the way the MMA hour is for MMA with Ariel Helwani and what a testament it is. It's almost like I'm almost more excited for the MMA hours between the week than I am for the cards on the weekend. And when I watch a card on the weekend, that's amazing. It builds me so much excitement for those podcasts throughout the week. And I think Spit and Chicklets is getting close, but they're still not there. And like, that's what it can be for like Oiler games. Like, but then to start that's been awesome. And like, I think they've gotten better each time, like to sit down with him and talk some Oilers and start to figure out. I think at the start we were trying to think of like not bits is not the right word, but like sections, segments. What are we going to do each week? What's it going to look like to give us a little bit of structure? Because we know we can just go in and kind of goof around and bullshit, but it's nice to have some structure to lean on because then you can break the structure after you have it, right? And we're kind of leaning on that. And then we got into the playoffs and we've just been rolling, like it's doing game reviews and it's just taking on a life of its own. And it's not like it's, listened to by, tens of thousands of people around the city of Edmonton yet. And I say yet because I've full fucking belief, just like I have in like the Von Dubcast, but like that's a really weird bet that is could take a really long time to pay off, even though I'm that confident. Like the confidence I have in like the Oilers Uncensored podcast is like, I don't know, all this is going to take is one lucky break to get the right people or for people to start finding out for it to, and probably part of that is to put the work in to, get its own social media page and maybe someone that knows social media that can help run it and like, get its own YouTube and start putting some of that work in. But whatever it takes, I think people are going to love it. And I think just going further into the playoffs and for people that, they're in the second round against Calgary, I want to start caring about the Oilers and I want to catch up with it. And they don't want to do a bunch of work and they just want to listen to a podcast on their work. Like there's just so many opportunities for it. So that's been awesome. I've been really enjoying that. I kind of jumped ahead through the whole Oilers Uncensored podcast and we'll probably dial back into it. So started doing that. Went to my first EDM show. That was tons of fun with Chase. I'd heard for so many years Chase tell me about these shows that he would go to, and not just Chase, like our whole friend group was very deeply into it in university and afterwards, kind of up until COVID. And then I heard so many stories and so many like dynamics that, you hear about, but you've never seen for yourself. And then to go to a show and experience it and to be able to kind of remember, like, it felt like I was just remembering all the different stories that were told to me because like, oh, I get it now. Oh, that makes sense. And you're just like putting it all together while having just an amazing time. And like we've talked about a million times in this podcast, I love to dance. And those shows are made to dance. And like, I don't know if it was the first show or the second show, because we went to 2 in 2 weeks, which I'll get to, because this kind of gets into the time where I want to just document what's happened the last couple of weeks and get more like date by date specific of it. But Chase always told me about, like, there's different types of people at raves, like people that are there for the music and to dance and to really enjoy the DJs that love. For that reason, there's people because it's kind of a cool scene. They can take an Instagram picture and they can kind of see people. And it was so funny to see that, because you kind of see, like, it's very apparent who those people are. And like, I'm just going in with Chase, so I'm going to do what Chase does. But like, I know I'm one of the music guys. I just want to be dancing the whole time, like, and just not really talking to anybody. Like, me and Chase would talk a little bit, but for the most part, we're just giving her. And like, I remember one point, a girl tried to come up and talk to me on the dance floor and like start a conversation. Like, I don't know, she's fucking knows. Maybe she wanted to fucking drug me. I don't know. Like, could have been. I could be completely looking into this, and it was completely not her hitting on me. But in the moment, it kind of felt like a bit like I was so into dancing that I completely brushed her off. And like, to look at it afterwards, and she's like, "Yeah, like you're really jamming." I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I'm jamming. Like, let's fucking go. Just having a good time." And she's like, "Yeah," and like tried to kind of keep the conversation going. I'm just giving. And this wasn't like conscious of what I was doing. I was just having a good time, and like realized afterwards that, oh, she was actually trying to talk to me. I'm like, yeah, like obviously I'm vibing. Like, why are you not dancing right now? Like, what is going on? And like that little interaction made so many more of the stories that I've heard over the years from Chase like snap into place of like the shit that pisses him off at raves and stuff. Like, I'm always like, yeah, okay, like this makes sense, but you kind of sound like a hardo. And then I went to him, I'm like, oh no, I would be that exact same person. Like, all those things you told you that piss you off, I get it now. And it was just really funny. And then like there's this whole bar area where it was so funny to me to be just having this amazing time, being this like vibe of just everyone dancing and everyone kind of together, and like hard to put words to it. And then to walk out into the bar to get a drink, and you hear like just typical like bar drama going on. So, someone paid whatever the tickets cost. Chase bought them for us. Fucking shout out. Thanks, Chase, for the awesome time and the awesome tickets. But clearly these people paid some money to come to this show just to sit at the bar and have regular bar drama. Like, and I never had time for bar drama, even when I was in like the bar drama stage. Like, I never did that. Even in university, when people go to bars, like I had no time for any of that shit. And I would always just run away from it. Anytime a girl would try and get me, like, never. I have no time for that. And Chase is very much the same way. But it was so funny to me to watch people pay money to come do that here, where it's like, you could have just gone to another bar and done this. Like, and you wouldn't even have to pay. Like, why are you here? But it was a little bit funny. Had that show. Yeah, it was a lot of highs. But this is kind of what my life had turned into at that point. And this will maybe set the stage for what I'm going to get into with the rest of it. Is when I stepped back from work to chase this podcast first full time, it was a big step, and I had a lot of fears. My biggest fear was I'd always put a lot onto the work and like how much I was struggling with having the podcast and my job that I was doing, because it was quite an intensive job and took a lot out of me and all those stuff. But one of my biggest fears was, well, if I quit it, and what if I quit and I have all the time and I'm still a failure, and I'm still not putting in the type of work with this podcast that I want to see, because I am inherently lazy, and it's probably more so. And I think I knew that all the time, that it isn't that work is holding me back from doing this stuff. It's just that I'm lazy, and I need certain things. I'm going to need to grow and build accountability systems to be able to do this at the level I want to. But I always had that fear, right? But more so what it was not being able to talk about it and have it be such a big part of my life that is taking up so much mental space. And it's so fucking cool, guys. Like, I wish I could come on here and tell you about Max Fuels. Like, I think if we started a Max Fuels podcast where like once a week I sat down with either like Ingo or somebody else from work, and we just talked about like the challenges that we're facing. Stuff like, it is fascinating shit that like is so amazing. But just because it's a corporation and we, work under a bigger corporation, you just can't really do that stuff. You can't really talk about these things. But it feels like I'm living a lie a bit of like this huge piece of me that I wanted, and it's making me feel all these different emotions. And I come to the podcast mad or bummed out or overwhelmed, but I can't talk about why. And that was the biggest piece of like, it was less so like the physical demands maybe, and more so like just the dynamic that it created. And it created a really tough spot for me where I was really struggling mentally to do that, because then that's what built the resentment, was that it wasn't the time pulling me away, because I knew, I'm just lazy. Like I'll find any excuse not to do the shittier part of the podcast stuff, not to, like I know I should post like 6 times a day and really get into social media, build a TikTok and be into that. Like I know I should do that, but like that just makes me fucking ill. I don't want to do that, but I know I should, right? I know I should just stop complaining that and feeling sad that the YouTube channel isn't up to date, and I should just learn it myself, learn the editing, do that. But like I hate computers. I don't want to do that shit, right? Like I love podcasting, I love conversation, I love this stuff. And like I figured it out good enough to do the bare minimum so that I can enjoy it. But like I know I should do that. But I think I wanted to paint this idea in my head that it was more the physical demands, and it wasn't that. And that, because I always knew that it was bugging me that I couldn't talk about it in that part. But I also, it was physically demanding and I was there all the time. But then to leave it and to go for these last couple of months, like this 6 months since I did that, and to still be so lacking in how far along I've brought it has been really tough. And I think the biggest part of that has been this weird dynamic of being very depressed, and the lack of motivation of that makes it really hard to get into that second and third gear and really go for it and grind and move forward. And then the lack of getting into that gear and moving forward makes me depressed. And it's just been this vicious cycle of that. And what I've been able to do in between then, and that's when everyone talks to me, they're like, oh no, you're doing great. Like, look at you, you're still going and all this stuff. And it's A, I don't feel that. And then B, I can feel my parents being very unhappy with it and very like not disappointed, because that maybe makes it sound too harsh, and I don't want to make it sound like that. And again, this is all how it's feeling to me. This is nothing that they've, said. Like we'll get further into it, but like I can tell that I got to back up further. Oh, this is tough stuff to talk about. Sorry, guys. So like growing up, I had so much love from my parent, like just undying love. And I'm so thankful for it. And it's made who I am. And like, I'm such a loving person now. And I love that. That's my favorite thing about me. And it's such a testament to who they are and how much they love me. And I love that. But there are also things, and like I talked about all the time, I want to caveat this with like, humans are designed to build from trauma, and they will find whatever trauma they want. So I had such an amazing life that these small little things, my brain blew up so I had something to rage back against. And that's how you grow. And that's very natural. And that's why it's so hard to be a parent, because you'll never do a good job. You're going to fuck your kids up in some way. That's just how kids are. They need to be fucked up. And if you don't, right. And that's a testament almost when you fuck them up, means that you've protected them from, because life will fuck you up. But if your parents are there to protect you from life fucking you up, then they're going to fuck you. That's just how it goes. Right. Like I've no ill will towards this, but growing up, I had lots of issues with my weight and how my family, not like just my parents, but like our extended family and stuff. It was very much, that was a big deal to be talked about. And like, I was always a pretty chubby kid, but it was always tough for me to get around, because like it made me so sad when like they would comment on it, and it just would kill me. It would break me. And then I would start to, if I could get out of that and I could start like eating a little healthier or working out, but then they'd comment on that, and then it would break me again when they were being positive, but because it felt like, and again, this is just me laying on, this is not what was acted out. This is my perception of what happened. What it felt like to me was that the only time they were ever proud of me, and specifically my dad, and this sounds awful, I hate even saying it because it makes it sound so mean, and this isn't, he's an amazing person. This was my perception of it, but like the only time he was ever proud of me was when I was eating healthy and when I was working out. Like, and it didn't matter what I did, didn't matter who I was growing to be as a person, how funny I was, like things that I valued. Like, don't you see, like, who cares if I'm fat? Like, I'm funny, I'm kind, I'm intelligent, like all the things that I really valued about myself. It seemed like he couldn't give, and like, again, he does. I know he does, but this is just how it felt as a kid. Was he didn't care about any of those things. All he cared about was my weight, and it just, I still got, I get angry about it now, right? Like, and it was tough to to deal with. And then on top of that, so I had, we're digressing fast, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. And then I had Slave Lake as a whole. I swear I'm going to bring this all full circle. You guys are going to understand where I'm going with all this. It ties back up. So I had, that's what it seemed like was valued within my family, that was what mattered. And it so didn't matter to me. And raging against that was tough. And then another thing within the family was kind of how you looked to the outside world. And that was a big part of it. But like, are you representing the family well? Like, are you out drinking? No, like, you're not that person who's like, who cares what other people think? Like, you know me, you know I'm a good person. Like, who cares? And we're always so concerned with what the community would think and what other people would think, right? And it was just like, and then you get told like, oh, who cares what people think? You know, like all those cliches you get told, but then in reality, that wasn't very matching up. And then to the rest of the community, all they saw that I was a rich kid, right? And like, that drove me nuts. I'm like, oh, you don't see that I'm intelligent, that I'm funny, that I'm all you see is just, oh yeah, your dad's Zingo, you're rich, you know, blah. And I was just like, fuck. So I really struggled with like those two things always growing up, right? Like I was super spoiled. I shouldn't even start with that. Like my university was paid for, like they helped me out with with vehicles. My dad helped me like buy and sell trucks to build up and get like nicer vehicles. Like they took me traveling. They always made sure I had food, but like in terms of like spending money, and I think my parents would probably attest to this. I don't know. Like, again, it's so hard to say it because there was so much just basic like things that they gave me that what I'm about to talk about is such a tiny, like 1% of it that it almost doesn't matter, but it mattered to me. It's like, I worked and had a job to like buy my like fancy clothes I wanted to wear. I got into like a little preppy phase in like grade 7 or 8. I don't know. Thanks Travis Malbuff, or probably Curtis Malbuff, if I'm honest, who both have been on this podcast and I've talked to him. But they had pretty fancy style, and then you kind of got to match that. You're trying to find out who you are. But I'm not going to ask my dad, hey dad, can you buy me this $200 French Connection hoodie that says FCUK on it? Fuck no. So it's like, no, I'm going to work and I'm going to pay for that. And I never took money for that. You know, like my parents would give me $20 for lunches throughout the week. And they say, well, pack a lunch, right? Keep the $20, pack a lunch, but everybody's going out for lunch. I'm going to do it. Right. So, you know, I spent $20 on the first day on a foot-long sandwich and a combo or whatever. And then I'd pay the rest of that with my own money. Right. Which they hated. They did not like that at all, that I was doing this. Right. And then I think that was kind of a weird thing. Like, they didn't like how much I was pushing back about taking money from them. And just like, no, like, we're your parents. Like, you have to take money at times. And still to this day, we have this issue. They're always trying to, you know, they're so amazing. And I'm just arm's length, like, hey, this is like, stay away. I need to do this. I know it doesn't make much sense, but in my head, it makes sense. Where was I going with that? I just promised I'm going to make this all come full circle, and then I completely lose my train of thought. But that was kind of my biggest traumas. And getting back to like the weight one, it was really tough because every time I would get into these times where I would do it for myself, I would get the confidence. And again, this is going to sound super mean, and like, I hate how it even sounds going through it, but I was a fucking 14 to 18-year-old kid. And I get into this point where, you know, fucking go, he cares about, you know, like, I'm not even thinking about him. I'm going to do this because I want to get in shape, and I'm going to do it right now. I would get all pumped up and I would do good for a couple of weeks. Cause you know, when I lock it down, and which is why I have the confidence that if I can get to a point where I'm locked in, and I'm doing, and I'm in a healthy, like I have healthy, a schedule and all this stuff, and I have the resources to put the podcast together, that I'm going to take it to this level. It's just hard for me to get there, because when I can lock in, I'm pretty unstoppable. But then what would happen is a couple of weeks would go by, and I could and I could feel the pride, which is so fucked up to say. I could feel Ingle being so proud of me. Like, oh, Nick's, you know, he's working out, he's eating healthy, and I could just feel it glowing off him. He'd be so happy for me. And I would fucking hate it. It would just break me inside, because, and I'm putting a lot of this on Ingle, but you know, it's, and I hate that I'm doing it, but I'm just trying to be honest here. And I think I need to get this off my chest, because it's, you know, it's bugging me for a long time. And I'm going to promise again, this will come full circle. But I could just feel this pride going off him. And then I could just feel I'm just waiting for it. And at one point he's going to just, you know, and this very rarely happens. You don't get a lot of attaboys from Ingle. He shows his love in very weird ways, and he shows a ton of love. He's a super loving guy. It's just very unique in kind of how he shows it, which is interesting with work when like new people come on. because they're always like single like me. And I'm like, no, I like you. And then later on, they'll figure it out and like, oh no, I see how he kind of shows it. And they figure it out too, but it's just different. But I digress. And then sure enough, one day it happens where he just pulls me aside and gives me, hey, I'm really proud. Like you're really doing good with all this stuff. And I'm proud of you. You're working out, you're eating healthy, and just, whatever it was. And like that, I would turn off, I would eat bad. I would like, I'm not doing this for you. And they would just completely throw it off. And I'd be back to square one. And I'd be, eating like crazy and maybe not working out. I mean, working out was less. It was more of food, and it still is to this day. Like it's food is my issue. It's not the working out. I actually, quite enjoy working out in sports and all that stuff. That wasn't really ever the problem. It's just I eat like a maniac still, especially lately. Right. And that's always been this dynamic, and we've grown through that, and it got a lot better. And we, got to a certain age where we could talk a little bit more, but because of the dynamic that we have, it's very hard to talk to them about stuff, because this hurts too. Like just saying this fucking sucks. I don't want to, tell them how they hurt me, even though I've already kind of gave that caveat of it. It's just, that's natural. That's how this stuff works. But in the moment of conversation, that does not apply, and they don't think that way. They feel like, oh, you think I don't. Every time any of this tries to come up, it's, oh, you think I don't love you. And it's like, no, I know you love me. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, and I love you. Like, this is ridiculous. This is not the point of the question. It's completely outside of love. And you are showing love. Yeah, you want your kid to be healthy. Like, that's 100% baked and comes from love, right? But just love, how love is received is what matters. It doesn't matter how you show love, right? Like, how do I explain that? You can show love in a way, but if it's taken a certain way where it doesn't feel like it, it's not that you're doing anything wrong, but you can't expect it to be taken how you want it to be taken, maybe. It's not as good as I would like to kind of leave that, but in essence, that's kind of what it is. So I really struggled with that. And then, and that was kind of, again, I'm going to say this word, which I got shit for saying so much when I first started the podcast, but that was a microcosm for much bigger issues of like, it was the weight, but then now everything else that became the things that I don't care about, that they care about, of like, trying to look a certain way or have a certain job or make a certain amount of money, like things that I just don't care about and they care about and that they're proud of me for. It feels very similar to the weight thing. And I get the same traumas come up when that stuff comes up. So then when I graduated university and came home, I got to feel that disappointment of like, hey, what are you doing with your life? And I'm just looking, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not really worried about it. Whatever I do, I'm going to be great. Like I don't know why you guys are so scared. And which is tough because they know me and know how lazy I am. And they rightfully are concerned. Like, we think you might just sit around all day. And I'm like, probably not wrong, because, that's pretty accurate. They have me pegged pretty good, but like, that's hurtful a little bit, like, fuck, like, it's not wrong, but it sucks. Like, I think they're pretty onto something there, but doesn't mean I want to, it's going to feel good to hear it. And not that they were, saying things like that. Like, I'm talking to myself right now. I'm not using that's not what they said to me, clearly. But, I could feel them kind of be disappointed. And then, through work, I started doing a bit more, and how it shook out, like, and I think I'd impressed my dad a bit with work and, with what I did at that point. And there were a little bit, and also I was going through a breakup at that time. And like, as you guys know now, I'm such a softie. I just don't do well with breakups all that good. So I was going through that as well. And it was just kind of, being a depressed piece of shit. And they have I shouldn't say they have a lot of judgment. I feel a lot of judgment. They have a good bit too, but I think I am hyper focused on that feeling because that's my trauma and I'm always trying to get away with it. So if they feel a little bit, I feel a lot of it, but there was some judgment there. And then I get that job and I move to Grand Prairie and I find a girlfriend and I do all these things. And like, it's great for me too. And was a very happy point in my life too. I can't put that on any of that on them, but it was awesome. I'm now 23 years old. I go from being this 23-year-old that has this degree and is kind of sitting around just working for his dad, not doing that much, being depressed and them rightfully having some judgment about it, me rightfully feeling a way about them feeling that way about me, when in my head I'm like, why are you concerned about it? Like, I don't know. I know I'm going to be great. Like, don't worry about it. Like, give it time. And go into this thing where now I'm doing this job and I'm 23 years old. I've moved away. I own a house. I have 60 employees. I'm running a very big organization. It's very successful under my, I can't even talk about this. It sounds like I'm tooting my own horn. There's tons of luck involved in this, but doing a pretty damn good job. Like, and they were very proud of me. And for that 4 years, I could just feel it. And it was at first kind of nice. And I think I kind of fell into it. But after, I don't know, I think I was just in a very positive place in my life in all these ways, right? New girlfriend, like living life, new experiences. It's new every day. You're learning it. Like, it was exactly what I needed, right? It was a lot of challenge. I liked the challenge. It was great. And I think that being in that really positive place kind of hid me from a bit of those feelings of, that pride. Because I started getting eventually when I got into a little bit less of a positive place with it, where it was becoming too much and I wasn't really enjoying it. Like, I didn't have a passion for it. It didn't feel like what I wanted to do. I was listening to these podcasts of these people doing stand-up comedy and podcasting and all these things that I love and really chasing dream. And something like I was envious of those people because they were living lives, even if they were making no money, struggling as a comic, but they were chasing something. I just idolized them. And I had all the money, all the accolades, all the pride of my parents just glowing over what I'm doing. And I just feel like a failure inside because I'm not doing what I want to do. This shit's really hard and I'm really good at it. But the endeavor itself was not sustaining. And as I kind of fell into a worse and worse place, was getting more depressed. Like, I started to feel that more, and like the pride that I would feel of them, and like them kind of, and they, at every point, and I started doing more and more, and like it became apparent that I had to do more and more, and like just, I don't know, the reality of, again, I hate this because I can't talk about it. Fuck it, I don't really care. It got to a point where I realized for the success of Max Fuels, I need to step up and I need to stop just kind of going along with what they say is good and just do my best to carry out their orders and say, no, this is what needs to change. I need to put my foot down. I need to grab it by the horns and hire some new people. And really, we need to change some shit. And like, just threw myself into it for like 4 months of just grinding my face against the wall, like coming home like a sack of hammers, just like falling down at the end of the day because I'm just completely wringing my brain out dry. And like, it's not like I'm lifting things or like working hard or like doing 15-hour days in the oil patch, like none of that. And I get that, but like just mentally of just like forcing myself to care so much about this thing I don't really care about, that you have to get it to where it needs to be, was really tough. And it was just like mentally was getting me close to my breaking point. And there was so much pride. And I could feel it, but I was not in a very good headspace. So it was like, it was feeling very much the same way. Like, how can you, like, this sounds awful to even say, like, how, like to feel all that pride that my dad would have. But it was the same feelings as when I was a kid of like, I don't care about being fat. Like, I don't care about this work stuff. Like, yeah, I'm good at it. And like, I do appreciate it. It's nice. Any pats on the back are nice, but like, can't you be proud of me for like these other things? And like, then when I started the podcast, I'm so proud of that. And it's, but again, all the pride felt like it was coming from this other thing. And I'm just like trying to get away from it. Like, I'm just, and then rebelling against it because like, it's so hard to keep that motivation and keep forcing myself into it when like, I feel like I'm doing it for him and not for me, because every time I'm getting all that stuff that I want, like all that respect that I want for the things that matter to me, I'm getting them for these other things. Now it feels like I'm doing it for the same way that like I'm getting all the positives being healthy, and I enjoyed being healthy and like eating like healthy. Like, no, I don't enjoy eating healthy. I enjoy eating like shit, but you know what I mean? You get a lot of benefits from eating that way. You feel better and all that. But then I'd feel like I was doing it because they wanted me, even though it doesn't matter. Like, this is all in my own goddamn crazy noggin. I understand that, but that's the way it was, becoming to feel. And it was really, really tough. And it just, got to a point where I was so depressed and I just needed to make a change. And like, it was that summer I was out like for my sister's wedding, and I'm just so depressed. I had to go on a trip with my girlfriend at the time, my ex at the time, to Vancouver. I just was dreading it so much. I just didn't want to, I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to be with my in-laws. I didn't want to be in Vancouver. I'm not very proud of myself of who I was in that time, but I was just so desperate to be away from it. And there's nothing, I just felt so trapped and there's nothing I could do. And I just needed to make a change. I was just like over those days, like thinking like, I need to tell Ingo, I can't do this. I need to drop this job. Like I need to get away from it. And then, I opened up to a few people, and everyone I kind of opened up to, like, hey, I think I'm just going to set a date. What are you going to do about Alyssa? Like, what are you going to do when you're coming? I'm like, fuck. Cause that's a huge trauma too. Like not trauma, just a thing that I have in my head of like, I take a lot of pride in when I'm with a girl. Like I've never let a girl pay for anything. Like, and that might sound sexist or misogynist to some, but that's just a point of pride. And I think that was a very scary aspect of this, of like, oh, now I'm betting on myself to be able to lose this crazy financial security with this job to go on to make no money, right? Fully confident that eventually I will make money with this podcast, but it's going to be completely dependent on me getting my ass in gear and putting all those things in place for it to make money. But I know I'm lazy and I might just sit around like I have and done none of it. And that was a fear then, right? Like I knew that I had that fear, and it's a much different fear. But I wasn't scared for myself. Like, whatever. I fucking go on. I'll get a job if I run on my, like, it wasn't that scared for myself, but I couldn't do that to someone else that was dependent on me, right? Alyssa wasn't working. And looking back now, I probably should have conveyed some of these things. I had a discussion with her, and she would have been amazingly supportive and helped figure out with me what we should have done. And I don't know. I just, in that time, I wasn't thinking that good. And it was, I just made the decision that, I'll just break up with her. And there was other reasons that, just in that same vein of, I should have just talked to her. I had some other things that I could concoct a really good reason for wanting to do it that were not wrong and had some merit to them. But the response to most of those, well, let's have a discussion on those. Let's not just be hasty and break up, which is exactly what she said to me when we broke up. And I just was so dead set on this course. So then I just started telling people, I just said, well, no, I'm going to break up with it. Like that. When they'd ask, well, what are you going to do with it? Oh, once, oh, really? And they'd be shocked, really? Because I don't think anyone really saw that coming, because we were extremely happy together. Like, yeah. Hey. So I think that kind of, took some people by surprise. And I think it was just, that was the ends to the means of being able to get out of this job, and to just knowing full well that wasn't going to solve all my problems. But I was just so in that point where I just needed a change. That seemed like the only opportunity, like the only option I had in front of me, which looking back now is fucking crazy, but that's what I did. And then, I think at the start, I didn't regret it at all, because we were still very much there for each other, and we were broken up in name, but like we were still being very much there for each other, still saw each other. We're still, physically intimate, let's say. I have no druthers talking about that stuff. I just feel bad because it's not really my place to talk about her anymore. But, and then it changed. And she kind of put that barrier down of, hey, like, no, we got to start to, be actually broken up. And that was really tough for me. And then I went on that road trip, and that was really tough. And I kind of tried to push those barriers a couple of times and asked for more, and she really put her foot down, and that was tough. And then when I got back, I think I talked about this with you guys, of like, just, taking that swing at, like asking her, hey, like, can we maybe try and work on things? And, she just said, what I heard was, no, fuck you, get out of here. I found someone new, which is ridiculous. What she said was, no, I'm still very hurt. Like, or not even no, just I still am so hurt. I can't even, like, I'm still processing that and figuring out and getting through what you did to me, which is more than fair, and had tons more fair points than that I won't even get into. Like, completely has all the legs to stand on in that decision that she made, but for whatever reason, it was really tough to deal with. And then I've been quite depressed since then, let's say. Partly of that, and partly of just with the depression, being so embarrassed and disappointed in myself for not fully reaching my potential with what I'm doing with this whole operation. And on top of that, watching my parents be not embarrassed of me, because they're not embarrassed. Like, that is, but I could feel over these last couple of months of, like, especially moving in with them and them seeing, rightfully so, seeing me stay up late, sleep in the mornings, doing the bare minimum for the podcast, just being kind of a sad, depressed piece of shit in a lot of ways, right? They have lots of reason to be less than thrilled, but it still fucking hurts, to just see it in that. And it's not their fault. Like, I'd be the same way. I totally get it. But it's been tough, and they've been so supportive. They haven't, they've been trying. They haven't really said much. They've been just kind of trying to be there for me, and I am so thankful for that. And kind of what it settled into was these 2-week cycles of building up to be happy, and then 2 weeks we'd have to change off with the dog, and I would either have to pack up all the dog shit, think about Alyssa, make a plan, talk to her a bit, and have her come and pick her up, see her, and she'd take the dog away, and it'd be just full on depression for a couple of days, and you kind of build up, and then for 2 weeks you kind of get your shit back together, and you're almost happy, like you're getting to a happy point again, and then you get close to Sunday, and then you got to make a plan to go pick the dog up and see her again, and it is, again, even it's amazing on that side to get the dog back, because that's a positive. But again, it shakes up your whole schedule, because you kind of get used to not having a dog, and it's nice, just to have the freedom again. And then you have to take the dog, and now you're back in that, and you're sad again because you just had to be reminded of all those things I just talked about for the first half of this after the EOC stuff. Like, you're reminded of every piece of that. It just comes right back, and you feel so guilty for what you did to her, and like, you want to separate out. And every other time I've gotten over someone, it goes like this. I start hating them, like, well, fuck that bitch. Like, I don't say that words. That's not how I talk to people, but like, and like, oh, they're with this other guy and they never loved me and all this other stuff, which is really hard at this time, because I don't have an ounce of ill will towards her. She's an amazing person. I still think she's an amazing person, right? Like, that's a tough dynamic for me to get over. And that's what it's kind of become, was like this 2-week cycle of not being happy. And then when you bring it up to anyone else, they just go, okay, this is ridiculous, Nick. Like, that's your dog. You paid for it. Like, don't be stupid. Just tell her that's your dog, or give her the dog and cut yourself loose from it. Like, why are you putting yourself through this pain? It's like, I get that, but me not having that dog is not really an option. And also, like, what I did to her was so mean, and I got to see the pain that it cost. And I literally feel sick to my stomach just talking about it. Like, it just makes me ill. And to know how much she loves that dog, and to think of taking her away from it, is just like, I can barely wrap my head around it. I know that, like, people just, it seems like anyone I've tried to talk to just cannot even see a space where that makes any sense. And they're just like, you're an idiot. Get that dog back, or do something with it. Just why put yourself through this? And I get where they're coming from, and there's probably a piece of it, right? But you just don't know the dynamic that we had. And like, just, it's hard for me to take people's advice from it from the outside, when it's like, there's no way you could possibly imagine all the different dynamics that go into this. But that's kind of what my life has turned into. And then, so that's what it is. So I'm about midway through April. I'm in this scenario where I'm kind of on this 2-week roller coaster where it's like up, hit a Sunday, hit us every second Sunday, crash, really depressed, and then up, like, a couple of days of digging yourself out of the hole, and then up, and I'm getting better and better, and people probably get to watch us. I'm sure being around me, you get to watch the state of this, and then it's a crash again, and that was pretty standard, and then something changed. About, I think it was, I could probably tell you guys exactly what it was. It was April 12th. It was a Tuesday. I'm sitting around in here doing podcast stuff. It was one of those Tuesdays where I was like on the upswing and I'm trying to get shit done and work on the podcast. And I was talking with Jade O'Keefe, who's been on this podcast before and is one of my good friends. And, we've been, since she came on the podcast, we've been very close and have a great friendship. And, it's nice to have someone I can talk. We've talked a ton about this and like about what I'm dealing with. And she's a very great listener, and she's been through so much bullshit that, I can help be there for her and all these different ways. And I was just talking to her the one day and I'm just like, fuck, like I am dying. So like something else you guys need to know about me is I am a huge love bug. Like I need to be able to give love. And I also am like a huge snuggle bug. I need snuggles. I need my cuddles. This is probably the gayest shit anyone can ever say. I don't give a fuck. I am a cuddler. And like, I get so much, like, to put it in the only, more homosexual terms than I just did. The only terms I can put it as my love language is physical touch. So that's, it sounds so silly, but it's true, right? Like that's just who I am. And like, I need someone to, because I just love everybody. Like I've talked about this on the podcast. Like I love my friends. I love my family. I love everybody, like that's just who I am. And I'm so proud of that. And I'm so happy with that. But it's tough when I don't have a receptacle. That's a weird word for that. I start to kind of wither, right? Like, and when I don't have, like cuddles, like to say that the sex part of this doesn't come into it is absolutely ridiculous because I'm a fucking sexual deviant. I think I'm a sex addict a bit. Like I definitely, that lack of it is a tough thing to be dealing with too. But like on top of that, just the physical, just cuddling, like, even if it wasn't that, and that's what I'm sitting there texting Jay, like, fuck, like, yeah, I'm dying and like would love to like hook up with someone, but like me and her had talked a ton about it. And I just said like the amount I've only ever had sex with people that I really connect with and that I've, like really enjoy as a person, like respect. Like I don't have this huge long, like if you knew my number, it's not that big, but like where I caveat that with is like, I stand behind each and every one. They're all good people. Like if I'm trying to think of like a metaphor to use with this, of like that list of people, they're all good people. And like, if you needed to repopulate the earth, like I think humanity would go in a good direction if those were the, I don't know, just like throw a number out there. It's bigger than 5, but just so I don't have to throw my own number out there until I'm forced to, if those 5 girls, or the girls that were repopulated, like they'd be good people. Like I stand behind that. And like explaining that to Jade, it's like, I don't have it in me to like hook up. I don't think, and I don't really know this, but like, man, I would just kill for some cuddles. And Jade's like, download Hinge. And I'm like, no, like we're sitting here in this room and I texted, like, I said, like, I hate dating apps. I'm on record. Like dating apps are stupid. Again, this is me. And, I've been through it before, right? When I got broken up with in university at the start of my 3rd year university, I downloaded Tinder because that was like right when Tinder was coming out. And this is what Tinder was at this point. I was like, downloaded it, you swipe right on those people, you get like no matches. As a guy, I didn't get any matches, right? So, and the ones I did, I say that I always am fucking demeaning myself. I got some, but like I struggled with it because like in my head, I'm like, this is crazy. You should all want to match with me. Why would any of you ever say no to me? Which again, like awful, egotistical, whatever. But like that, it sucked. Like, it was like a terrible experience. Like, oh, you just got to go through and just like get your ego smashed to pieces. And then the ones you would match with, I'm not texting any of these. I'm not going to actually start a conversation. There was like rarely would a girl start a conversation with you. And then you talk a bit, but like, again, I'm not the random hookup guy. And like, I just wasn't in a place at that time when I downloaded Tinder, I guess. And looking back on it, probably would be the thing for me to even put in the effort to see if anything would go anywhere. So like I'm texting you like, this is stupid. I'd get no matches. This is stupid. Like I've been there before. The conversation, I never text anybody. So like the conversation never go anywhere. And like, this is all dumb. And she's like, Hinge is a little different. Like you have to, like there's more, like you have to do like prompts and stuff. You get to see a little bit more of who a person is. It's not like Tinder where you just see a picture of them and swipe, like just on purely on looks. I'm like, no, this is stupid. I do work for another hour or so, and I'm busting ass in here. I'm having a really good day. I was doing lots of podcast stuff. I was on one of those really pumped up, motivated Nick days where I was getting shit done. And Jade was helping a lot with that, right? Like I got to give her fucking props. She's been a really good engine for keeping me on track, even though I am the worst. And I probably take advantage of, like, she tries so hard and I like listen to 10% of the shit she tells me, and that 10% really helps. But like if I would actually just listen to her more, I'd be a lot further along. But I digress. I don't know what took over me at one point, but I said, I go, fuck it. I'm going to download Hinge. Let's go. Whatever. This is going to crash and burn, and I'll at least be able to fucking go, Jade, I told you this was stupid. I shouldn't have done this. So I download Hinge. I start going through it. I start like, I'm having to like, and I hate every part of it. I'm like just fuming at this stupid app, like stupid pictures. I don't want to pick pictures. I don't want to write these stupid prompts. Like I'm just putting bare minimum into this profile, like of what I want to show and like what I want to do. And I just want to get through. I just want to get into it. I just want to fucking swipe on some bitches. Come on. That's what I want to get to. And like makes you put so much effort in before. And like, I just felt so cheesy and awful. And I felt like it was tough because I didn't get to see like what other people's profiles were like. So I was just trying to like put the bare minimum in so I didn't come across like I was a fucking hardo. Anyway, get through it. Right. And I'm texting Jade the whole time, like, this is stupid. And she's like, give it a chance. Like, this is actually pretty good and stuff. And then I finally get to the point where I was like, my profile is ready and I could start my swiping. Or I don't even think you don't even swipe on it. You like hit yes or no, but you have so then I get into it, and it was much different from Tinder. There's pictures of people, right? You can put voice notes. You can attach like an Instagram profile. So some of the girls you can actually look through and like see who they are. It has like their age. You can pick like what you say. You could just have it, just say your age and where you're from, or you could have like age, where you're from, where you were born, your vaccination status, if you drink, if you smoke, if you do drugs, if you smoke weed, if you, bunch of other things, but just long and short of it. And then you have to write these prompts. Like it'd be a question like, don't swipe on me if, and like, someone goes, you're unvaccinated, or like you don't like the outdoors, or like something like that. And like some of them are really stupid, but some people actually put effort in. You could tell who they were, and then you get to say yes to them, but not just for the profile as a whole. You can either like you have to pick either a picture or one of the prompts or something they said, some aspect of them, and like that, which I really enjoy, because then it's like, oh, I can 90% of the time I was swiping on something they said, like, okay, let's be full honest. I would go through, I'd read their profile, and if it was someone that like seemed really cool and interesting, I would pick someone that, like the thing that made me interesting, like, oh, is it your taste in music? Is it your, like something you said? Did you make me laugh? I would, say yes to that most of the time. If I went through it and nothing really caught me like that, but they're hot, then I'd pick a picture. And like within that, like if I just thought they were like very beautiful, I'd like pick one of the beautiful pictures. If I just thought you were hot, I picked the bikini picture, right? Like I just had this whole category in my mind of like, now I know why I swiped on you. So like, if I do want to go start a conversation, now I have that. And now which I really enjoyed. So I'm going through, and sure as shit, I'm getting matches. I'm fucking swiping for, I don't know, half hour. I got like 50 matches. Just going to say it felt fucking good. And like, it was kind of cool, kind of what I needed at that point. And I think just that whole idea of what Tinder was. And then I've come a long way from that. And like, I think I now more match what I thought then of like, like I am a catch. And like, yeah, all these girls should want to, but now my life matches up to that. Cause I was saying that at that time, you're in university, you're overweight, you party all the time. You like, don't even have your degree. Like you've really accomplished nothing. Where is this assuredness that you're this catch come from? And I'm like, okay, that's fair. Right. And I think Tinder kind of matched up, but now a little bit different, like started a podcast of I've done some pretty fucking crazy things running that I can't talk about, running a really big company, doing some really crazy shit and some crazy multi-million-dollar deals with all these fucking older gentlemen. Like, well, I don't know, I'm going to talk some shit. Running circles around these guys are like 40, 50 years old, and they're trying to make this deal. And I come in there like, I'm not even supposed to say something, but I just see it being bought. So I just step in and start talking and make it happen. I love that shit. That shit gets me juiced. But like, my reality has matched more of that. And it was kind of cool. And I'm, getting all these matches and, some girls are messaging me, some conversations start, and like I'm texting Jay, I'm like, this is kind of cool. And she's like, yeah, like fucking get into it. And I'm just like riding that high. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go through, I'm going to start a conversation with each one of these girls. So I sit there and I start going through, sitting in this chair, in this room, just going through, like just starting a conversation. If it was something like just, and like I was just so buoyed and so confident at that point that I'm just, messaging, like being funny, just like being my normal, like just like so overloaded with confidence that it was like probably a bit, it wasn't like untrue because that is who I am, but I'm so rarely in that spot where I'd usually be way more shy. I wouldn't be that outgoing. Like, I didn't care. I got like a ton of conversation. Like it was quickly became way too overwhelming. Definitely wouldn't recommend that. Kind of stupid. Anyway, I'm going through this, right? And I'm just starting conversations. I'm just having a great time. And then at one point throughout this, with the matches, then as I'm going through, starting, because I just started at the bottom, was moving up, like just starting a conversation. And again, if it was the chicks that it was just the bikini pictures, it would just send hey. But if it was I liked like a pretty picture, someone that just looked interesting, but there's nothing that like jumped out at me other than that. I just like, hey, you're beautiful. I don't know. So like, that sounded pretty awful coming out of my mouth, but that's the honest truth. That's probably what I said. Something like that. And then if it was something that like it was a prompt or whatever, something they said or something that was interesting about them, I'd start a genuine conversation, right? Because those are kind of the ones after. And I'm going through, I'd probably messaged, I don't know, like 10, 15 girls at this point, 20 girls at this point. One of the girls I matched with, this girl from, Westlock, who shall remain nameless, which I'm sure she'll hate because she probably wants me to throw it out there. Anyway, and it's not even Westlock, it's Clyde. Way more hillbilly than Westlock. But, and part of the reason I think I swiped on her was like, oh, fucking Westlock girl. Chase will love that, like, because I don't think Clyde was probably an option. It's such a hillbilly little town. Anyway, she messaged me and just, asked about my music taste or something. I don't want to get too far. Just started a conversation, right? But I'm messaging all the different girls. Didn't think too much about it. Didn't even realize like it was at that point where I didn't even know. I had to go back and look if I had started the conversation or she had started the conversation, because I was talking to some bitches. Let's be honest here. I was hinging it up, and I think I got to a point where I had messaged like 50 different girls. I had like 50 different conversations going, and it became a little bit overwhelming. And I'm like, oh my God, I kind of just let a couple fizzle out, let a couple, more going, like got in a couple conversations. I was like, oh, I don't want to be talking about like, yeah, I have a podcast, and like, yeah, I know you hate Joe Rogan, and like, I wish I had it in me just to let you have that and like not push you on that, but like definitely gone into some annoying little spats with some people that were, I'm sure great people, but just the way they came across and like the hills they were dying on seemed pretty vacuous and unintelligent. And yeah, anyway, and then some really amazing ones that like just some cool people that seemed kind of interesting. Some, very nice people that were boring as fuck. Oh my goodness. Anyway, just the whole gambit. But, it was just a nice little ego boost to have, I suppose, if nothing else. And then, later into the night, a couple of conversations are still going, and that Clyde chick, she texted me and we're having, but here's the thing, 22 on the thing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a child. Like, I'll entertain this because it's a conversation, but there's no way this is going on. You're fucking 22. Like, what are we going to talk about? Fucking TikTok? Like, fuck, I don't know. Right. But like, again, and going into this, that was like what I said with Jada, like, there's no, like, I'm so not in a place to start a relationship or to get any further than that. Like, this is just for fun. Like, hopefully I can get some sex or some cuddles out of this thing like that. But I knew that was so ridiculous because the amount of connection I would need for that to ever be on the table would just make it not a reality. But, kept talking, just have like a really great conversation. We're talking, into the night, and we're bullshitting and really, get along really good and have a pretty good connection. Then we, she wanted to talk on the phone. I'm like, no, let's FaceTime. I want to see. I want to see it. And she's like, no, like I'm not doing that. And we bullshit. And it's probably, like 2 a.m. or something, and finally convinced her to FaceTime. And like the whole time, like, this is going to sound crazy, but like it was just a connection that I don't think either of us saw coming. And like, it didn't surprise me because I feel like I can connect with anybody. That's what I do. I'm a, this is what being a podcaster is like, you have to be able to go in and to genuinely connect with people. And I'm very open to that. So I guess I wasn't surprised, but I didn't think that the other way, I didn't think I would connect back with someone. I was surprised by that. So yeah, anybody can connect with me. Like I'm a great listener. I'm genuinely interested in people. Like if you're somewhat interesting, like, yeah, I'll listen. I'll ask more questions and I'll genuinely try to get to the meat of who you are. And I won't put up with like bullshit answers. I'll dig deeper, and we're just bullshit and talk on the phone. And like I'm trying to get her to come over, obviously. Right. Like just, come over. Cause we've been talking all day at that point. I'm like, okay, like I'm not a killer. Like I promise, she doesn't know that, but like, yeah, no, like I have like you've now creeped like my Instagram, my like podcast page. Like, if I am a killer, I must be pretty fucking good at it because nobody's caught me yet. Any kind of thing. And we're connected pretty good. And she's just, I think I kind of had her convinced. I don't know. Maybe she'll be on this podcast one day. Maybe she can answer it for herself. But she said, oh, I don't really have gas. She's like, do you want to meet me halfway? And this is the thing. I was like, oh. And she said, will you come here? And I'm thinking, fuck that. I'm not going there. Like, I'm lazy. Like, it's not even that I don't want to see I'd left you, but it's 2 a.m. I'm not driving out to fucking Westlock. Like, that's banana lands. But if you want to come here, like full on, like, look, I'm not going to say no, even if I, and that's what she said, like, we're not going to do it. And I was like, yeah, no, that's fine too. But I was thinking, if I could get some cuddles, wouldn't say no. You know what I mean? Like I'm all about that. That may sound completely fraudulent, but I'm 100% genuine in that was where my head was at. And that is just who I am. But we bullshit on FaceTime from probably like 2 till 5 a.m. And like, it's just, we're having more fun and enjoying each other more and more. And it's like having like a pretty genuine connection. And I don't know what came over me. But at 5 a.m, she had to work, I think, at like at noon, maybe. I think she had to work maybe at noon the next day in Westlock. So it was like 5 a.m. She's like, well, I want to meet you. Like, let's get up at 9 or 10 and we'll meet halfway and we'll just meet on the road and we can just meet each other. And I'm like, fuck, like, okay. Like at this point I'm in, like, I don't know. I'm a romantic. Fuck it. That's who I am. Like I was in. And I'm like, fuck, it's 5 a.m. I'm not going to sleep for fucking 3 hours and then get up and go, I'm going to be a nightmare. I'm going to be a mutant. I said, fuck it. I'll come see you. So at 5 a.m, I got my truck and I drove out to fucking Clyde, Alberta. And we drove around and had a great time. That's what initially she had messaged me about, was her taste in music. And she sent me some music. I was like, man, like, and we kind of kept going back and forth sending music. And she had a wicked taste in music, was like sending me shit that I really digged. And like, we're very similar in terms of kind of tunes we liked. And just spent a couple hours just driving around. Like, she just directed me through all these back roads of Clyde. And I don't know, like I said, wasn't that I didn't want to make a move, because like I said, like I'm a bit of a sex addict, but I'm so like, the biggest thing I'm attracted to is someone that's into me. And like, I need 100%, you need to almost like sign a waiver before I'm going to try anything. Not because I'm not sitting there dying because I don't want to. It's just, I just don't have that in me. I'm just a gentleman, I suppose. So I'm sitting there the whole time, like, not much is happening because, that's just who I am. But like, we just had an amazing time driving around, talking, getting to know each other more. And, just before I brought her home, kissed a little bit, and it was, nothing, like she said, nothing was going to happen. So that was fine. But we had a really awesome morning, I suppose it was. Drove back, went to bed at went to bed at like, I got back at like 10:30 in the morning. Hadn't slept all right. Slept for a couple of hours, and then I had to go check on Chase's dog that day. So I got up at like 1 and I texted Chase like, "You won't believe this, right? Like, guess where I was last night? Where? Clyde." He's like, "What the fuck, dude?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a girl." He's like, "Okay, I got story time. Like, I got to hear about this." And yeah, and then kind of the next couple of days, I think throughout the rest of the week, we just talked all the time, and she had, come over to my place, and we really started to get to know each other for a bit, and like, went on some walks and watched some movies, and just, really connected, and it's a tough dynamic because like so quickly and so clearly, like almost crazily, there's this really crazy connection. But I know the whole time that I am fucked up beyond belief, and I'm in no place to get into anything with anybody, and like I need to be single, and like this is no bueno. Also, like you're 22, right? And she turns 23 like next week, so she's like, "I'm 23." I'm like, "It doesn't matter, you're a child." And like has come to realize she's very mature and has lots of younger siblings, and was kind of, just been through some shit in life, and has forced to mature beyond her age, like, and yeah, we just had a great couple days, I guess, together, got to know each other a lot more, and just kind of got into this situation where, like we both definitely feel a lot of things, but I'm just like, "Hey, I got, I can't give to you what you want," type of thing. Like, and I'm just trying to be the whole, and I was the whole time. I was very upfront about all this, and like just totally 100% honest about like, like, "Hey, I have this ex, like it was very serious. I'm still super fucked up about it. Like I've got this dog," you know what I mean? Like, and kind of took that all in, and, really cares about me for who I am and all that stuff. And I'm just like, like I appreciate that, but like, it's, even though you're like very open about that and you say that stuff, like just with actions and the connection, it oftentimes feels like it's being forgotten. And it's like, "Hey, don't forget that like I'm not promising anything here," right? Which is a very, like, I feel a lot of guilt about it a lot too. Like just, but it's just honestly where I am. And it's just like, that's all I promise her, is that I will be completely honest with you where I am with all this stuff. And we've been, having fun ever since, type of thing, and getting to know each other better and better, and all this stuff. And relatively early on, one of her friends dated. I don't know. Anyway, I had a connection with somebody from Slave. And I recognized that after, like, once we've been talking this a couple days in, and just like, oh, like, so like eventually it just occurred to me at one point, I was like, oh, like, so I'm sure you did, like, I'm sure you got your friend to ask her guy there from Slave, like, who I am, what you thought, like, am I a killer at least, right? Like, and like, I'm just, this is embarrassing, but in my head, I'm just kind of, I'm excited. I'm like, "Oh, what?" And she said, "Yeah, no, I asked." Like, obviously I asked. I was like, "Oh, like, what did he say?" I'm thinking like, "Oh, maybe he said like, oh, he's a really funny guy, or he comes from a good family, and, or, he's nice." Like, I'm just thinking of like all the things, like, I don't think you're going to hear anything bad. I wasn't worried about that, but and she goes, "Yeah, he said you're loaded." And it's like, fuck, like, oh, like just what I was talking about earlier, just that trauma of like always growing up being known just for that. And oh, that sucked. And I was like, oh, and then you're second guessing, like, oh, well, is that what you're after? And like, I already knew at that point that wasn't at all what she was after. And like, it was so much more than that and different than that. And like, it wasn't really, but it just sucked. And she's like, no, like, I think that was not at all any of like the mind thought, but it still fucking was a tough one to hear. Yeah. And then that Friday, went to that second rave with Chase. It was again an amazing time. Was really really enjoying that what do you want to call it? Not environment, that the community let's say. That's not even the right word. The vibe. Ooh, I hate using that word, but the vibe of like what happens at those shows and just like what you feel. I really dig it. I want to go again. It's actually, telling Chase, I think on Friday, just this past Friday, like, is there any more shows coming? Like, you got any more artists coming that you think I'd like? Like, we should go more. Anyway, that was awesome. But again, drank that night, and I'm really starting to feel like the next day after drinking, that hangover anxiety, that anxiety you get is real. And like that next day, so it's a Saturday, but I had such an amazing time. I'm feeling good. I think I almost said a name. Westlock Lady was God, I fucking make myself laugh. Was working or something, and I'm at home and feeling kind of down, and then Alyssa texted and wanted to make a plan for me to come pick up the dog the next day on Sunday. So immediately puts me in a really tough spot. Just any sort of communication just completely takes me back to all those feelings, all the guilt I feel, all the all the pain, all of the missing her, everything just comes back. And like, it's not even like I consciously think of all those things. It's just any sort of, as soon as her name pops on my phone, it's just completely, the worst. So that's tough. And at this point, everyone was really this was like the height of everyone being like, okay, you're an idiot. Like, fucking cut this dog shit out. Like, clearly it's not working for you. Like, put your foot down, be a man. And I'm like, okay, you guys clearly don't understand, but I have to at least make an attempt. I got to try and just at least broach the subject of, hey, this isn't really working for me, this whole passing the dog off every 2 weeks. And I don't really know what the solution is, but I need to kind of bring that up. And also, I don't want to talk to her at all. Like, I wanted to get that said and like start that. And like, I knew it wasn't, because I knew there wasn't a solution, but I just needed to kind of almost just get it off my chest and like say those words, just like start it. And I kind of was hoping that I could just, okay, like, well, then we'll talk about it maybe on the next time. But she wasn't really having that. Wanted to have that discussion then. We were texting, and like, I probably, like, this wasn't really things to be texted with, and like sent a long message, and like probably hurt her. I feel like I just, as much as I try and go through this whole process, it's impossible to do without hurting her even more. And like, that's the whole thing I'm trying to avoid. And it's just like, oh, it was not good. It was not good. And just the texting went back and forth, and it just didn't go over well. And she's like, well, what are you saying? I'm like, are you trying to take the dog from me? Like, I don't know what I'm trying to do. I'm sorry. Like, fuck, I'm just like full, like, just in a terrible place. And then she calls me. Oh man. In that conversation, just to have to hear her voice and like I just was so already preparing myself, like, I will never have a full conversation with her again. And like, I was just trying to go over that, and to be like, just then pitchforked into doing it. It was awful. Didn't go well. More shit came up. I got to hear like more of different ways that I heard her. And like, she was kind of that, like, it almost seemed like she wanted to discuss some of the things that, like, when I had done that last attempt to say like, hey, can we work on this? And she had said, no, I kind of then, okay, well then I'm done. And I had, in my own head, she's with someone new. This will never work. I'm getting over it. I'm just, like trying to do what I did by hating people and her girls in the past without the hate of just like, no, it's just done. There's no way. It's not happening. I don't have the hatred to lean on to give me that sureness, but like, I'm just going to make it so. We're never going to talk again. Like, this is just over. And then to have to go back into it unprepared, like, just, I was just not on the top of my game. I'm also, hungover, anxiety filled from that show the day before. It just was not a good place at all. It didn't go well. It was super sad. There was tears. It was fucking brutal. Brutal. And yeah, it was tough, and it was tough days after that. Like, that was another one of those like really hard drops of like, okay, now I'm digging myself out. But the nicest thing was, like, went and got the dog the next day, and she, in the morning, seeing her was fucking hell too. That was a whole other story. And and to see her cry, like, it just, nothing hurts me more. Like, just I can still picture picking on the dog and seeing her hurt, and just once again making her cry, and just like, that is just the worst thing ever. I just can't even explain to you guys how much I hate that, like more than anything, of just like someone you love being hurt and knowing that you caused it. Like there's just no worse feeling for me. I don't know if you guys are like that too. Maybe that's more normal than I think, but just for me, that is like the worst thing in the world. I'd have to go through it and know that it's your fault, and like you're trying with everything to avoid this. Like everything I was trying to do was to try and avoid that, to know that even still you're doing it anyway. And like, it's not that it wasn't even like I don't want to be with you. It's just like I want to be separated from causing you harm. Like if I can't be with you, then I don't want to just be here causing you harm. I want to completely separate away from it so I can start to not forget that, but just get away from that feeling too, and just move on. Like I just want to move on. And that's what I was telling. Like, I just don't know how I'm going to do that if we're meeting up every 2 weeks, like, and changing this dog off, and like just having your existence be thrown in my face. Like, not that you're doing it, just like the fact that I have to know that you're out there and that you're existing, you're probably with someone else, and like that we're just not talking. Like that is just tough to handle. And like I can do that. I get to the point where I'm doing okay with that towards the end of the 2 weeks, and then I get reminded of it, and I'm right back to square one. It feels like not square one. Every time it's gotten better a little bit, but it's not at the rate that I'm happy with, and I don't think it's efficient. But I guess what the nice thing was, I got my dog back, which that was great, and I fucking love her, and just just to snuggle her up, and then it was just a real sad piece of shit, and I was very open with Westlock lady about what I just gone through, and that it was terrible, and I was pretty sad, and she'd come over and was so nice to me, and just kind of didn't ask too many questions, but just was there, and kind of cuddled me better, and went for a walk with the dog. And usually what happens in those times is I just isolate away from my family, I isolate away from everyone. I just I would just usually go down to my room and just be alone and just lay in bed, right, and just feel the sadness and cuddle my dog. And it was a very, very nice change of pace to have someone there, of just like, didn't need to talk about anything, but just like to isolate with someone. Or like, it's just like, she kind of just was like, okay, well, if that's what you need, like I'll just isolate. We can just sit and watch movies, and we'll do a Harry Potter marathon or something, right? Like was a very nice thing to have. But again, it's tough because it's like, well, you're doing a lot of things for me, and I feel guilty because it's like, this is not me promising anything to, like, this is, if anything, this is evidence of like what I can't give you, like, but then you're giving me so much that it's like, it's a tough dynamic, right? But it was amazing to have. And it was nice. And then that week, she has to work, so we didn't get to see each other a ton, but on her days off, she had come, and we got to hang out, and she got to meet the dog and all that stuff. And we just kind of, that NRE, I think they call it, new relationship energy. It's, it's very, you can't discount it. It's very revitalizing. It's very much, a powerful force, even though all the other things I just described and all the caveats I just described, it's still, you still ride that a bit. And, we're really enjoying that. Got to the end of that weekend. I had, the dog had a haircut on the Saturday, and they shaved her right down, which I was very upset about. I realized that I was going into this week-long trip in Slave Lake for podcasts, and I hadn't really planned it as concrete. I couldn't really get answers out of people of when it was. So I was kind of going into this week knowing I had to do a bunch of podcasts, but didn't really have anything. I just had so much anxiety, and I was realizing, I've just been so infatuated and like lost in this, whatever this is, that I haven't been doing myself. And like, just that anxiety just hit me, and it was just like a really tough day kind of get through. And like, I think she kind of was feeling me for the first time, being like full on like anxiety and kind of struggling with my mental health a bit that day. And it kind of put her in a tough spot, because she's been through tons of shit, and like is an amazing person for what she's been through, but has like some stuff that my stuff clearly triggered. And then I felt, then again, I was feeling that like, oh shit, now my shit I haven't dealt with, that is leaving me to be this person in this moment, is now hurting this new person. Just like who I am and all my shit has just hurt to listen while I'm in this spot of like, I just hurt people, and I don't mean to. really nice, but I just end up with who I am. I hurt people. Yeah, that was tough. But once again, got through it. She was very nice and very much just so much more than I could ever ask for and anything more than I can return, which again is kind of highlighting that dynamic of what I'm trying to get to you guys. It's just like, like there's guilt there because it's like, you shouldn't be being this nice to me. I'm going to hurt you. Even though I don't want to, like, there's no point in that, but it was nice to have. And, again, there still is very early, right? Like it's only been a month and I don't know, month and a bit, maybe since we even met. And like, at that point it was, a week, like less than it would have been like just over a week at that point. And it was just, dealing with it, but then went to Slave, had an awesome week there, Oh no, that was that. So I had that kind of tough Saturday. Dealt with it. She kind of helped me through it. And then that's the thing. When I was around her, I wasn't feeling it all, and I could kind of hide and like just, lay and like it was very happy. Like being around her was hard to be sad, right? But then when she left on Sunday, right back to being that sad and feeling all those feelings, and then kind of everything hits you at once. And I knew I didn't have an episode because a bunch of people. That was the other thing that week. A bunch of people backed out on podcasts, which was fine because I was just like, I didn't care. I thought, I'm having an amazing time with her. Oh, you backed out on the podcast? Okay, well, that's no big deal. More time I can spend with her. Like, this is great. You know what I mean? And like, that's what I was getting to on like the Saturday when it all hit me. I'm like, ooh, I may have fucked up here. Like, I've just been, too much enjoyment, not doing enough of what I need to do. And, but I knew I was like, oh, well, I can just do a solo. I haven't done a solo episode in forever. I can just do a solo episode and I'll talk about all this stuff like right when it's fresh of what I just went through with Alyssa the night before, talking about or not the night before, the week before, with getting the dog and trying to have that discussion and just how poorly it went and how tough I was doing with that. And then the day before, having see the dog get shaved and knowing that was my so I don't even want to, that's going to take us down a whole other tangent, but I was really struggling at that point. And I tried to sit down here and do that solo episode, and it was too much, and I tried to jump into it too early, and I was angry, and I was it was tough, and I wanted to talk so much about what I felt like I was telling other people's stories, and yeah, I quit. I was probably 35 minutes in, and I just quit, and I cut it, and I just put that post up and said, hey guys, there's not going to be a solo, there's not going to be an episode tomorrow. And I was very embarrassed about it, felt very defeated, and yeah, it wasn't that good, but that was a low point, and kind of going into that Slave Lake trip. It was a good thing it was so good, but that's kind of where the reason I wanted to say that was, I just planned my boys, Ben and Joseph, the blockchain bros, knowing that they're always so easy to work with. And I knew that I could just tell, okay, as soon as I get in Monday, I'm leaving Monday morning, whatever time I get into town, let's do a podcast, and I can just release it the next day. I'll only be a day late. I'll have one. That was really good for my mental health. And I'm just very thankful to them that they're always so quick to help anybody. And they're just great guys, and had a great week with them. Like, had a great conversation with them, did a podcast with them that night. Tuesday, didn't have a podcast, went for a nice run with my dog around Slave Lake. It was nice to just do the full loop around town and, wave at a few people, and just the nostalgia of being back, running by your high school, and, having that stupid bridge be out there they're fixing. So I did fucking tack on an extra bit to my run, which I didn't want to do, but that's okay. That was nice. And then had my buddy Simon, who's been on this podcast before, Simon Vanass. I'd been feeling a ton of guilt because he has a new son that I got to meet when he was just a baby. And he's such a cute little toddler now, 18 months, I think. And he's like, and I love babies. And like, to know that he doesn't know who I am was really, really bugging me. But he didn't have Eli on Tuesday. He was with his mom, I think. And Simon just came over, cooked me and Ingo a nice dinner, had some steak and salad, watched the Oilers game. It was really nice. I was reading George Kellum, the podcast I just released prior to this, reading his book. That was great. And then went into that podcast with George the next day on Wednesday. And then Simon was able to bring Eli over, and we just had the best time, had great baby time, enjoyed the shit out of it. And then I think it was Thursday. that girl that shall not be named yet came up and visited as well one of the nights. I can't remember which night, but that was another kind of highlight of it. And again, that was like the first, like we hadn't seen each other in a couple of days. And again, it was so early that we didn't really know. It was like, is this too crazy for you to like drive up to my hometown, like whatever, but whatever, we didn't care. And just, end up having a great night. Really just had a lot of fun, had a lot of laughs, listened to some good music. And just next day took for a cruise around, that would have been Wednesday night. She got there late Wednesday night because she had to work and just left after work and came in Wednesday night, and then had a great night together. And then next morning got up and actually spent a day driving around town. I had to do a couple meetings for work, so she just kind of sat upstairs and kept the dog occupied while I did that. And then she had to head back to work. Then she just came in. I think she was only there for like 12 hours, 15 hours, but it was really nice. I really had a good time, and that was again like another step towards climbing out of the negativity that like had been brought on. And then she left, did an awesome podcast with Hunter Llewellyn. That one will either be out. I'm not sure if I'm going to release this solo episode tomorrow as Monday's episode, or save it and release Hunter's and have another interview episode on Monday. Or so it'll either way, this episode and Hunter's episode will be out this week. I just don't know which one's going to come first. That was awesome. Talk to him. I think the 14th, he's going to be in Vegas opening for Travis Scott and Snoop Dogg. So that's fucking huge. Cool. He's always an interesting cat to sit down with. He's very quiet. And it's, I think of the podcasts I've done, he's the hardest one to kind of pull stuff out of just because he's quiet, like still good conversations, but just my job as a podcaster, I really had to be on and ask lots of questions and pull a lot out of him just because he is quiet, but it was still fun. And then went over to my best buddy growing up, like two of my best friends, Clinton and Julie, who had a great time at their wedding. I talked about their wedding on this podcast. They're kind of part of this little podcast family too, and got to meet their new baby, Evelyn, which was awesome. Just a little preemie, tiny little thing. Got to hold her and watch the Oilers game with Clinton's family and see them, who I haven't seen in forever. And like growing up, I was over there probably more than I was at my place. That was my second home. And just to go back in there, feel the nostalgia, sitting on that couch, watching the Oilers game with them. And then third period, 5 minutes left, 10 minutes left, boogied over to Blake, the Alexander's house, who you guys will be probably here on the pod maybe next week, and did a podcast with him. He's a big hunter and outdoorsman, and we had a great time. Drank some liquids and told some stories and just had a ball. And if I wouldn't have had Soka at home alone at my parents' place for that many hours, we could have been there till 4 a.m, I promise you. And then we'll do it again where we don't have any sort of hard outs and we can do a full 5-hour behemoth podcast, because I think Blake could probably talk for that long. And it was so much fun, and it was such a good feeling to feel it's someone that I'm so used to feeling guilty over keeping people there too long or not being, like I feel like I'm being a burden on people when they're a podcast guest, but to feel it from him that he wanted to keep going, it was me kind of pulling it back. I'm like, no, I kind of got to get home. Like, oh, I can't do anymore. Like just the way that filled me up, it felt so good. Like I don't know. I probably should, text him and tell him this, of just like the way he acted and like the vulnerability he showed to be excited about being on the podcast really meant a lot to me. And I just had a great time. So that was awesome. And then Friday, went for another run, brought my buddy Lance, who's really into crypto, over and introduced him to Ben and Joseph. That was fun. Probably stayed at their office just bullshitting crypto and watching Lance and them, get to know each other for a good chunk of hours there. And then I don't know what, can't remember what I did Friday night, but then Saturday rolled around. The whole reason we're there, we're having, Lance and his girlfriend and Clinton and Julie and Clinton's parents and my buddy Drew and his parents. Drew's been on the podcast before, and Travis Malbuff, who's been on the podcast, him and his wife and their young daughter, and we all had a big dinner of burgers and had a great time, and even hopped in the pool and just had a great night, reminiscing old stories, baby time, like just everything I needed, nostalgia. It was so much fun. Really, really enjoyed it. And then my parents had to take off early the next morning, so just kind of had a lazy day around Sunday. I was supposed to do a podcast with a guy who didn't have working out, but this is where things got a little bit tight. Is I knew that Sunday was supposed to be the changeover with the dog, but I was just trying. So I'm just not thinking about it because I'm just trying to get over it. Like, unless I'm forced to think about it, I'm not going to think about it. I just know I have a podcast. I'm not going to not do this podcast to get home to do this dog. All right. I've already said that this isn't working for me. I'm not going to bend over backwards, which probably isn't the best thing, or at least could have just been communicated, which I heard about. But, I got a text from her and just said, hey, I got this podcast, and the podcast didn't end up happening Sunday, and we're supposed to do it Monday morning. Which again, that also didn't end up happening. We're going to do it at another date, but, had to get home for the Oilers game. That was game 1 of the playoffs. I'm so excited about, right? We've been started this Oilers podcast has been the highlight. Like, just, I'm so diehard. It means so much to me. Like, it probably sounds to people that aren't sports fans to this degree, how crazy it can be to be this excited. But like, I was over the moon for this playoff Oiler game. Like, just can't even explain to you guys. So I'm driving back to Edmonton. I got the dog, and I was going to text her and say like, I'll have to bring her to you tomorrow, because I figured, by the time I get back to Edmonton, she'll be at work. And like, when I get back from the Oilers game, it's going to be late. I'm going to be drunk. I can't bring her to this tonight. So it'll have to be just Tuesday morning. And I was thinking I could tell her just like, she'll be at the house. Like, you can come pick her up while I'm at the Oilers game when you get off work or whatever. But again, I just didn't want to talk. Like, I didn't even want to go through that. I was trying to enjoy my day, and I was just thinking, like, if I can just get through the enjoyment of this Oiler game without having to deal with this. But sure enough, she saw a snap of me in Edmonton or something. Just said, "Oh, you're in Edmonton." And I said, "Yeah." Like, I just figured you'd be at work. She's, "Oh, you should have told me. I could have come pick her up." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." Like again, like, I can just feel myself starting getting down, but I'm so excited with the Oilers. I'm just getting pulled up and down. And, I'm yeah, it was tough. So then she said, well, I'll come pick up the dog. So I didn't even get to say goodbye to the dog. She just is going to pick her up, and when I come home, which wasn't the end of the world. But then, now we're at the square before the Oilers game starts. We're getting excited, and I'm trying to just kind of lose myself in the excitement. I get to, where's her leash? I'm like, oh fuck, sorry, it's not in the bag. Like, I fucked up. I didn't know you were coming. Like, I didn't have this ready, and always should have. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Okay, and then, okay, sorry. Like, I'm just trying to. And then, how much she, and like, she's been alone and just like getting hounded. I'm like, okay, like, I don't want to be mean here, but like, I'm really trying to enjoy this hockey game. And I know you're just trying to get the information you need, and I probably should have had this all prepared, and I kind of all this, but like, I just had to say, like, hey, can we do this tomorrow? Like, I didn't say this, but you're really killing the vibe here. Like, I'm trying to be happy, and I'm at the Oilers game. Like, anyway, and then she said, yeah, no problem. Like, we'll talk tomorrow. But damage had kind of been done, and I was a little bit bummed and went to that. Oh, another thing I forgot. That's what Friday was. So Friday, we did the playoff preview for the Oilers Uncensored podcast, which was such a highlight. We did it on Zoom because I was in Slave. Zoomed in Chase, and then we also zoomed in Fraser, who's the guy we met up with on our road trip down in San Francisco, our third amigo from our Lister days. Just one of the best humans on earth. Absolutely love the guy, and he's a huge Leafs fan. So we did a full breakdown episode of every series, 3 hours long, of just us three idiots making fun of each other, ragging on each other, giving some actual insight into what us three idiots think is going to happen in the playoffs. And it was so much fun, guys. It was so good. And like, I know the playoffs have already started, but if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it. Like, it is, I don't know. Like I kind of started this podcast with, I have so much faith in this Oilers Uncensored podcast, and just like, it keeps getting better. Each episode's better. And then we did that playoff breakdown, and even the two of them, I think, like, I talked to both of them, and I said, hey, that was actually pretty good. I'm like, yeah, it was. Like, I'm not surprised. Like, I knew it would be, right? Like, because I've always had this crazy confidence that, anything I do is going to be great. Just, needs the time to get there. But, I was like, yeah, no, it is. It was great. And then, then we did the, or get back to the game. We, go to the game, bit of a tough one for the Oilers. It was a really good game. They had some scrambling moments, came out really. LA played amazing. Jonathan Quick played unbelievable, and we ended up losing. And it was a tough pill to swallow a little bit. Like me and Chase have been at some other game, like in 2017, where they lost, and we were so sad that we literally were sitting with our head in our hands in the stadium, in the stands, until the cleaning crew clicked us out, and we like looked up and realized that the whole stadium was empty. Like everyone in Rogers was gone. It was just us two sad idiots sitting there, right? Like we've had some devastating losses, but I was pretty hyped up. Like we got home, we were planning on doing the podcast that night. We were fucking hammered though. Probably shouldn't. I have some videos from that night of things I could probably will and eventually release of it, but like spirits weren't that down, probably just too drunk to do it. So we ended up doing that podcast the next day. Yeah. So you just said, let's go to bed. It's late. Like we ordered some food and we're drunk, and we just said like, let's do this podcast tomorrow. I said like, I'll bring the podcast stuff over to your place, and we can do the podcast there. And then I got to go to the office. My dad needs, my dad had just said, hey, I need you at the office tomorrow for something. Yeah, no big deal. We got a meeting at 2:30 or whatever time it was, and I'd like you to be there. It's the type of meeting I love, the type of stuff that I've been loving to help out with, right? Like I just, it's the part of the job that I really enjoy and that I think I really do well at. And I have no qualms helping out with that stuff at all. And since I quit, I've been doing that stuff still. Like I never stopped doing that stuff. So next day, wake up, and once again, like the hangover anxiety, went for a run. Or no, I didn't go for a run because I was hungover. Just got up. Oh man, I'm getting into it. This was a tough day. Really tough day. Probably the toughest day I've had in recent memory. So may not sound crazy yet, but it gets a little bit wild, and I'm just mentally preparing myself for it. So roll over to Chase's place, set up in his basement, did a quicker episode. Like I think it was only like 53 minutes or something. Just broke down the game before, just kind of said, what we saw, what could be different, what our expectations going in for game 2 were. Right, this was Tuesday because game 1 was Monday, game 2 was Wednesday, and we were full on plan. We're going to go to both games. We're going to go to game 1. We're going to go to game 2. That was already kind of in place, and then rolled out from that over to Ingo's office and got in there, and we were going to do that meeting. It was probably an hour to that meeting, say, and had a conversation that probably needed to happen. And it was kind of, this is why I told those stories earlier that I promised we're going to come full 360. This is where it did. The one about growing up in like always struggling about being known as, the well-off family. Like that was to explain why that hurt, to hear that thing about, when she asked her friend from Slave, like what they knew about us, and they said loaded. Like that was what I promised them to become full 360. And then when I talked about struggling with the weight stuff and being proud of finding like the pride of my parents over like things that matter to me, this is where it comes in. Because as much as I said, like my parents have been awesome since I quit and since I moved in with them, of just not saying many things and just being supportive, I could always feel that they were really not okay with it. And it was hurting me, but like, I was so down that it was just one more thing. Like, just, I can't even deal with that because like, I'm so sad about so many things. And I know all the reasons why and all the excuses I have in my head. Right. And those mean something to you, but they don't really mean something to other people. And Ingo just came in with some tough love, and he just, had reached his breaking point of not saying anything. And that's, he just, said like, hey, you said you're going to get all these sponsors, you're going to take this podcast, and you haven't done any of it. You're sleeping in, he pretty much said everything that I've been saying to myself in those negative feedback loops, just verbatim, all the worst shit that has been just haunting me, just to hear it come from him and it be completely right. And he's not wrong. Like at any point was it wrong. It just was so to be in that time where you're just the wrong day for it. Wrong. It just did not, I was already feeling all those things and feeling like such a failure just to have that, like, it's like, yeah, I know, like just being handled with it and not having the mental fortitude to be able to like stand up for yourself even and just like, yeah, you're right. Like, I agree. Like, fuck, I'm a piece of shit. And once again, this is me adding how it feels. Like he was trying to, I've really wanted to talk about this, but I don't, it's tough because I don't want it to paint him in a bad light because, and I'm hoping that I can navigate this in a way where I can kind of tell both sides of it, but it's just a tough conversation. And I tried to bring up and tried to have that conversation. I was just like, hey, I really want to get my shit in gear. And it's tough because I feel like it's very similar to the weight thing and like where I want to do it for me, but every time I try to, I feel like that's the only thing you guys want to see out of me. And then I just rebel against it and I stop doing it or I stop getting my shit together because like he sees it in the frame like, oh, I need you back in work. And that's all he was saying is like, I need you to come into the office and start working again 3 days a week, which reasonable, whatever. Like, I don't like the idea because it was never that to me. Like I'd come in for 3 days a week. I just don't want to be paid for it. I don't want to be in control. I don't want him to own me, which he already does own me. That's what I'm telling me. You own me. I have to listen to everything you say. I already know it. You don't need to have money hanging over me either, which he's like, but you need money. You can't just spend all it. And I'm like, I know, but like, it's just so not worth it for me. I will come in 3 days a week and work for free. As long as I don't have to get roped back into this where I have to feel that guilt of like owing other people something for I don't want. And it just did not go well. He sees it as me being mad at what he's telling me and trying to hurt him. Because he's again, I say him, but the only reason I know this is because this is exactly who I am. But we just see everything through our lens. And we're very selfish people, very kind, very loving, very giving. But like at our core, we are very selfish. And, when I would say, like, I was trying to just explain to him of why I struggle with it and like why I revert that back. And then he just like, why are you bringing up because, I think it's been tough for him to have to hear me talk on this podcast about how growing up and like the weight stuff affected me. I think that's tough for him. We've kind of moved past it. Gotten to a better point where they haven't moved past it. That's putting too fine a point on it, but we've made a lot of strides with it, which I'm so happy about. And I think for him, it's just pain for him to go through. And he just thinks that I'm just throwing that in his face. It's like, no, I have a reason. I'm not just bringing this up for nothing. Like I'm trying to explain to you why this is tough for me and why it isn't. It's because to him, he just kind of understands, like, everything you have to do. I can explain to him everything I need to do to take this podcast to the next level, and I'm not doing it. And to him, he doesn't understand depression. He doesn't understand it. How could he? If you've never experienced, I never did. Until I felt this, I was him. Like, suck it up. Like, just deal with it. Like, just do it. Like, so I completely get where he's coming from, and he's not wrong at all. But like, it was just a tough spot to be, and just to feel it just like cut me to just 1,000 pieces. And I was just, and then to know and to have that now the pressure's on of, I have to, like, I can't sit here anymore. I need to do all these things. And all these things is like get a video component for the podcast, get the YouTube channel caught up, learn video editing, start a TikTok channel, start actually doing social media, start doing clips, going back to the podcast, coming back to podcasts and clips, do up a Patreon, start these other podcasts, start the solo podcast, hire a producer. And on top of all that, in order to do all that, the biggest thing I know, and I think Ingo has an instinct for this too, is I need some sort of schedule. And what that is to him is, okay, come back to work because that's going to be your schedule. And I'm like, no, what I need to do is start getting up at the same point of the day, get a workout routine, like figure out schedule for myself where I do this stuff. And I know that is the number one thing. And so he's not wrong. Like he's on the right track of what he needs. He just sees it through his lens. And then also, quite frankly, I think he needs me at work. And I think it's been tough for me to be gone. And I think it's tough for him to watch me just in his eyes, just sit around and be lazy and just be unmotivated for no other reason than I'm a piece of shit. Like, again, that's more me than him, but like, that's how it feels for what, like the eyes he looks at me with, that's what it feels like. And I'm sure he has a complete different way to say that same thing, which is way more kind and way more loving, because he is a kind and loving person. And I'm putting my trauma lens through it of how I'm seeing it, but it was tough. It was really tough. to have that conversation, and we're just going back and forth at each other, and he's getting mad and upset, and I'm just trying, and I'm not mad at all. I'm just fucking hurt, like just crushed, and trying to defend myself and explain myself, but so much of it is excuses, and it is excuses. And at every point I'm like, I know these are excuses. I'm just trying to, they're 90% excuse, but there's 10% of truth in them. And I need you to understand that I'm not just a piece of shit. But I was so sad that I just found myself just being like, no, you're right. Like, I am just a piece of shit. And I am just this. And I've never reached a lower point than that. It was just tough. And then we're going and going and going. And it's getting closer and closer to this meeting. So we're just going back and forth, and I'm trying to convey, and I'm just not in the headspace to be able to lay it out like I'm trying to lay. And also, you can't have an argument with him. Everything's his way and he's right. And you can't even, even if I was in full faculties and on top of my game to try and explain this like I'm trying to explain this now, there's some sort of barrier of understanding if he just grew up in a different time with like his parents who had different, like the value systems are so different of what they matter. And like, I'm trying to explain to him like this, like I want you to love me for, or no, not love, again, that's the wrong word. Like, I want you to respect me and to be proud of me. I want you to be proud of me for the things that I value. And I've only ever been able to get you to be proud of me for things that you value. And it's tough. And then he just say, no, I am proud. And he thinks like, he's like, I want you, I want you to be success more than anything. And I want to support you. And it's like, yeah, no, you're right. Like, I know you do. And like, kind of in the same way I was talking about like the love and how it's received, like support. Like sometimes the way he tries to support is the exact opposite of what I need in the moment, but that doesn't mean I don't love what he's doing and like love him for trying. But then he thinks, he gets in his head that I'm just being, I don't know, the whole time he was the victim in this whole conversation, which was tough for me because it's like, you are for sure. Like, and I know some of the, but like, I'm not trying to hurt. Like, felt like he thought I was wounded and was trying to lash out at him. And it wasn't at all. I was trying to explain myself and what I was feeling, but so much of that, he's a big part of that. And every time I try and just explain how he factors into it, he takes it as an attack, and then he gets defensive. Then he comes back at me. And it's just this feedback loop where we're going for an hour, not yelling at each other, but like, it's just not good all around. I'm just not happy with how it's going. I'm just so fucking, and my mind's spinning because now it's like, holy fuck, not only all this and I'm just feeling like a piece of shit, but now the clock is on. I need to start doing all this stuff. I have no more time to figure this out, because to me, it didn't really matter because, and this is what I was trying to explain to him of like, yeah, I've been beating myself up and like mad at myself over all this for not doing it a little bit, but only because I know that he and my mom care. And that matters to them, because the optics are going to look like I'm just being a lazy sack shit. But I know I'm not being a lazy sack shit. I'm so proud of what I'm doing. Like, because I don't value it. It doesn't, the podcast doesn't make money. I don't care about money. I know it's going to make money. I'm so sure of it. And then he's like, well, why don't you just prove it? And it's like, yeah, but I don't have the, like, I'm doing everything I can to do it. And I'm so proud of it. And I'm not, it's so hard to explain, even like here with no one arguing against me. It's hard to fucking explain. It'd probably be easier. I'm better with someone to bounce off of. That's why these solo ones are sometimes hard and very chaotic, but like, I'm disappointed in the looks I get from them, in myself, because I know I have more to give and I could give them what they want. But then also at the same time, I'm embarrassed and I hate that in myself, that I even care what they think. It's weird. But then like, to try and explain that and come across without that seeming like an attack is very tough to do. And he's well within his rights to feel like it's an attack and to get on the defensive, and it just didn't go well. And then we go into this meeting, and I'm in this meeting just spiraling. Like, I can feel myself, like the anxiety. I'm just like starting to get the feeling like I'm like a panic attack, because I hadn't had a panic attack since those times in the summer leading up to that thing I talked about, where I had kind of got to that point where I just needed to change. And that's when I ended up telling Ingo that I was going to step back in October. And then that's when I told him I'm breaking up with Alyssa and all this stuff. I was having some pretty severe panic attacks. Well, no, looking back now, those are fucking peanuts panic attacks. That was a piece of piss. I'd take those in a heartbeat over what I fucking felt this day. Ooh. Okay. So we're going into this meeting, and you know what? I'm just like mentally spiraling, but also trying to concentrate on this meeting and trying to like be a part of it and say it. But like, the meeting is stupid. The whole point of the meeting was stupid. Like, we needed to do it because we just needed to do something, but like it was so doomed to fail from the start, and we so knew the outcome of what it could be. Not that we didn't have to do it, we had to do it anyway, but so it was hard for me to lock in. And I still was, I'm happy with how I comported myself in that meeting. I, didn't say anything stupid, and I think I helped it along and was a productive part of it. But inside, I'm like just raging. There's a hurricane going on in my head, and I'm just thinking the whole time of like, okay, I can't wait for this to end. And then Ingo's going to leave, and I'm just going to stay here, and I'm just going to sort myself out of like, I just need to make a plan, or I need to figure out something like, how am I going to get all this shit together? Like, because like the go to work 3 days a week, whatever, that's not a big deal, but that doesn't fix the solution. That helps him fix his solution. Then he'll be more proud of me, I guess. Like, makes him feel better about what I'm doing, but that doesn't change me. Like all the negative thing, like that doesn't help my podcast get anywhere. That doesn't help. And like getting into the schedule will, but that's more what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh, what he thinks he wants out of me is not what he wants. Like for sure he'd want me to be at work. I don't want to be at work. I don't really care, but I don't want to be forced back into that thing of being paid to be there. And like that feeling of being trapped into it, not being free to do what I want and to have someone. I don't do well with authority. I don't know if that surprises you guys, but I just don't. I never have. And it's because I grew up with the ultimate authority. Ingo's always, everything doesn't matter. Like whether it was work or not, he's just the ultimate authority. There's no pushing back against it. There's no arguing with it. There's nothing. You just have that. And I just don't do well with any authority ever because of that. And not to say that he was an amazing guy with that authority. Like he could have been a dictator. And like at times it felt like that, but he's just such a kind, amazing human being that like, it wasn't torture to have that authority. And I still don't feel that way. That's just Ingo, right? Like now I can laugh about it 9% of the time. Like when Chase and him just got in their first little spat over some season tickets thing, and Chase got to feel the first taste of what I've been through my whole life. And I'm sitting there, I laughed at it at first, and then it escalated, and it was fucking awful. And I hated every piece of it because it got, I don't know, I probably didn't help it along. And I just sat there, laughed at them two idiots going back and forth. And I probably could have helped it a bit more. But like, it's funny now to be able to sit there and laugh at like, other people getting a taste because I'm just so used to it by now. But where I was going with that is with that kind of authority, I could have hated him for sure. If he was anything less than such an amazing person, I probably would have grown up hating him. And I don't have an ounce of hate for my dad in me. I fucking love that guy. He's my hero. He's like, oh, like I could cry right now just telling you like everything. I look up to them. Like he's just such an amazing human. And because of that, like that's where like I have that severe distaste for authority because I had the ultimate authority all the time, but he was so amazing with it that it didn't feel that way, let's say. Like, and he could have been a lot worse with it. Like, anyway, I'm completely off my rocker, but I was like thinking like, okay, like in my head, I was thinking like, well, I'll just, this kills me. Like, just like, cause I know what things would make him happy. And it's like, okay, if I start eating healthy again and working out, but it makes me fucking want to puke to even like think about that of like, just to get him off my back. Like that just kills me that is the thing that matters. Or I could go to work, I could do this, but like for me of what I need, I do need to schedule, and like I could make it going into work. I could come into work 5 days a week, but like more than anything, I just need to reset my sleep schedule and like that's what I was trying to think through, but I just needed time because my mind was just spinning. I just wanted to sit there and figure it out and just be alone in that office. I just wanted like the meeting to end, everyone to leave, Ingo to go, and I just have a couple hours. That was my plan in my head. I'm just going to sit here until I forgot to stay here till like 7 or 8 o'clock. I'm just going to stay here and get a plan because I can feel this anxiety coming and I'm kind of losing it. And then everyone leaves the meeting. It's really quiet between me and Ingo. Like he's not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. I'm like, honestly, just lost in my own head of trying to like plan out. And just, he's like, oh, I'm going to leave the car here. And I just didn't even hear it. I'm just like, whatever. And I'm just sitting there like, trying to breathe and trying to like figure my life out and just trying not to spiral because I can feel myself spiraling. I was the whole time. And he goes like, no, I need a ride home. Like you're coming with me. And I'm like, fuck. Oh, like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't. I'm getting the same feelings even trying to go back to it. Like I get so overwhelmed and I'm trying to like think about what I was thinking through in that moment, but there was no thinking. I was like, it was like bestial, like just like a tornado going on in my head and in my chest. And like, there's like flashes of thoughts and what I was thinking at the time, but like just nothing was really happening. There was no real thought having there, but I knew I need a solution. I need to fix this. I don't know what to do. Like clearly this is not good. Like I need to fix it, but my brain won't work. I can't think. I can't do anything. I'm fucking hyperventilating. And Ingo's fucking mad at me and he knows, and I just heard him a whole bunch of times in that conversation prior. Couldn't explain to him that I wasn't trying to hurt him. Like And I can clearly see that he's hurt and I feel fucking awful about it, but I can't even deal with myself to help. My instinct is to want to put him at ease and tell him this isn't your fault and I love you and all this stuff, but I can't. I'm fucking losing my mind. I have to get in a car with him. And this is what. So like before the meeting, I'm sitting there like as it's kind of ramping up, people are coming in. I'm just kind of losing my head. I'm like, like just like kind of trying to. And he's like, quit making those noises. You do that just to make me mad. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm just fucking trying to live. Like I'm trying to. And it's like, but then I'm trying not to make noise, and I get that because I know he does hate when people make like harumphs and like noises and stuff, but like and this is the same way I am, because he thinks everything's about him and I think everything's about me. Like I'm not blaming for this. I'm the exact same way, and I love myself, so I love him. But yeah, like and now so I'm like, fuck, I can't even. So now I'm getting in the truck and like we're driving home, and it's just and I'm fucking losing I can feel this panic attack coming on, and I can't breathe, and like I'm trying to just act normal. My face starts to tingle, like I get like pins and needles in my face. My hands are like, I can't feel my hands. My vision's going like I'm getting like tunnel vision. I'm like just absolutely losing my mind, just trying to drive from point A to point B. Like I had the directions on my dash of like trying to get home, and just Ingo tried to talk to me a couple times. I just couldn't even like talk to him. And like it was getting to the point where it's like, I've had panic attacks before, but it's never been this bad. And this was just the beginning, guys. Like I'm telling, like it got worse than this, but like, and then Ingo's sitting there and I can just feel him seething, like so mad. And like, yeah, there's some part of me that wanted to address it and like put him at ease too, but it was just like, I'm just trying not to fucking crash this truck right now. Like you're on your own, Ingo. I know you're mad. Like, sorry, there's nothing I can do right now. I'm sure we'll talk at some point, or he'll hear this and figure out what was going on at that point. But he just said like, I feel like you're giving me the silent treatment over here. And I just told him, I said, honestly, Ingo, I'm just having a fucking panic attack. I'm just trying to fucking get there. And okay. And he didn't really say anything. And I don't know. He kind of looked at me like, that's bullshit, right? Like, fuck, I don't believe you. And I think, just, and I said, like, I'm trying not to I know you don't like noises, and I'm trying not to like breathe hard, but like all I want to do is like just do my like try and do some breathing exercise. And he said, like, okay, well, like I don't like clearly. And then I think he kind of snapped in and realized that I was going through something, and he's my dad. He fucking loves me to death, so he doesn't want to see me like that. And like I think he probably got a little bit scared or whatever. I don't know. He just said, well, but he's still mad, so it comes through his mad, and he wants to help and be there for me, but he's fucking pissed. He's like, well, fucking do your fucking exercises, do your breathing. Like he didn't say that, but like that's what it felt like. It was just he lovingly snapped through his anger to like tell me to like, hey, do what you need to do. I want you to be okay. And like I appreciated that. Like because the whole time it's not like, because he's so worried about me questioning if I love him or not, or that he loves me or whatever. And it's like, no, I know you do. Like this is, and I know this is just how you show it. Like even the conversation we had that went so sideways, that kind of was a part of all this. And like, it was just the trigger. All this stuff was already feeling. It wasn't his fault. It was just kind of poor timing of it all coming together, and just our communication styles. Like none of it was his fault, but like, I think he was feeling very guilty about that. So then the rest of the drive home, we're almost home, and I'm trying to, do my breathing exercises. And I don't know if it was starting that, but it just started getting worse. Like by the time we were home, like my fingers were like just white knuckled, like clenched on the steering wheel. Like I missed parking, like backing in. I like fucked up the backup, and I'm just trying to park like as fast as I can to get him out of the truck so I can just be alone, right? Like that's all I want, is just to be alone. And then we like park and sit there, and then I'm just sitting there like hyperventilating. Once we parked, and I could like turn it off, and then like, or like turn the truck into park. And then Ingo's like, what can I do? And I just said like I can barely breathe. Like I can't even talk to him. He's like, well, like, I love you, right? And I'm like, I know, like, not the time. Like I agree. Like this was never in question, and this was never about you. None of this is about you. Like, I guess in a weird roundabout way, like the initial traumas of the things I struggle with. Yeah, but like you didn't do anything wrong, really. Like there may have been a bit better way to go about it, but you were never wrong in anything you said. Like I wasn't mad at him, and like I think that was hard for him to understand. Like that had nothing to do with him. I was just really struggling, and I'm sitting there, and I just said like he's like, well, come in. I'm like, I can't come inside. I said like, just go, like just go inside. Like I love you. Like I just need some time. I'll be in a bit. And he finally, okay, I love you. Like I'm going inside. He went inside, and then I just sitting there, and like that. Well, as soon as I was alone, and then my thoughts crept in. Like then I went into like the full blown panic attack, like which I thought I'd had one before. I've never felt like this. I was like trying to deep breathe, trying to get like there was clearly air going in and out of my lungs, but for some reason, like just felt like I was not oxygenated. My face was just like the weirdest feeling of like pins and needles, hot and cold. My hands were freezing and they started to like cramp up. So I was like my fingers were all, I don't know if I'll release the video for this. If the video I release, you'll see what I'm doing, but like my hands were all crippled up. My fingers were all crippled. So, and the plan was that was Tuesday, and Westlock lady had Wednesday and Tuesday and Wednesday off work. Those were her 2 days off, and then she had to work the rest of it. So that was the only time we were really going to see each other. So we had a plan that like after that she was going to come over, and like I knew that, and that was also spiraling through my head. So like Ingo's like, I need you in the office tomorrow and stuff, and I'm thinking like, wow, okay, I was supposed to hang out with like what's her pickle, and I can't really like let her know, and that sucks. That's the only time we can see each other. But I can't tell Ingo that he's clearly not in a point of caring. He just wants what he wants, and like that's whatever. But it's gonna suck to tell her that and all that or whatever. We'll have to figure it out. And like I wanted to text her to let her know that or like what's going on. And my fingers are so frigged. I couldn't even like I tried to text, like I sent a bunch of gibberish because I couldn't even like literally could not focus. So then I just figured out that if I put my stupid cripple hand like this with my pointer finger out, I could like tap at the, and I just typed it to like, hey, having a panic attack, like not doing very good, like not sure, like I'll try and like talk to you later, but I don't know if like we can hang out. And she's like, okay, I'm on my way. I'm halfway there. And then I'm like, what? Like, I can't have, like, I'm fucking free. I can't even get on my vehicle. Like, and it's just so I was like, there's no way. Like, and she's trying to be nice, like, oh, well, I can come do this. I can come do that. And she's trying to be so kind. I'm just like, I didn't have much patience this one. I was like, fuck this. Like, why did you come without texting me? Like, that, first of all, I just don't like that. Like, and like, she's just so excited to see me. And it's all nice. And she said, like, I can just go shopping and stuff. Like, I'll be around if you need me. Like, just text me when you need me. And I'm like, fuck. I feel guilty about that because now I feel like you're just driving around. You came all the way out from like Westlock and now you're just driving around Edmonton waiting for me to be okay. Like, I didn't like that. And I just told it, but I was trying not to think about it. I was like, I'm just going to try and get my shit together here. And then I'm going to try and go for a run because I hadn't worked out, and usually running helps. Exercise helps with this in the past. And I was just like, oh, brutal. But texted her all that and just sat in the truck and just tried to like, just breathe through it and couldn't get it. Like, just couldn't get it to like release or get any sort of relief. And I just put on one of my meditation soundtracks, which is just fucking like hippie bowl sounds and, you know, like Buddha music, if you will, and just leaned my seat back and just fucking tried to meditate and was there. I don't know. I was probably in that truck for an hour and a half, guys, of just like not good. Like, fuck, it was awful. I don't know. There's probably a couple people that are listening to this right now that have experienced a panic attack like this, and they're probably like, oh yeah, no, I've been there. And I know of like, and that was the thing the whole time. I'm like, I've heard people talk about panic attacks, and most of like what a panic attack is like you've had them before and you're so scared of it that like the fear of it is what ramps it up. And like, I'm trying to tell myself that I'm like, you're okay. Nothing has changed. Like 5 hours ago, you were doing a podcast with Chase and you were having a good time and you were fine. Nothing has changed. You are completely fine. You are safe. Like, this is madness, but it's physiological. It's like it's a fight or flight thing. It's it's inside. It's not up here. Like, up here is what triggers it, but it's an actual physiological response. And I've always heard that, but I've never experienced it. And it was so weird. And that's where I was trying the whole time. Then like, I can get through this. And like, I guess into like the next couple of days, it was tough because I was like, I could feel that fear of like, anytime I felt any anxiety about it, I was like, oh my fucking God, like, is this going to happen again? Because like, I know I'm fine, but I knew I was fine then, and it still happened. And I couldn't control it and I couldn't stop. It's like just fucking brutal. So yeah, probably hour and a half. Finally was able just to get to a point where I was meditating. I was kind of breathing, like couldn't ever get fully like into a meditation, but enough to kind of pull me out of that panic state. But then every time I try and make a plan of like, okay, I'm going to go inside. I'm going to try and get this podcast I recorded with Chase uploaded because I needed to get that out. Then I'm going to try and go for a run. Just like the thought of trying to just do that was so debilitating, and it would fire me right back into like the panic. I couldn't do that. And I'm like, oh, and also I didn't want to go inside because I didn't want to have to explain to my dad and try and like talk to him. I was just like, like I don't know what to do. And then eventually I kind of figured out like, because every time I try and think of a plan, I would just go pull that and I'd have to kind of recenter myself. And then I got it to a point where I made a plan. I texted What's Her Pickle and said, you know what, I'm going to try and walk to the garage, get this podcast uploaded, and then I'm going to go run. and then I'll see how I feel and maybe we can hang out. And that's what I did. I walked around to the back door, came in here, got the podcast uploaded, wrote a quick description, got it sent off, walked downstairs, threw my shoes on, and just went for a run. And it helped a bit, just listen to some music, called What's Her Pick a little bit and tried to, didn't explain anything what happened. I didn't want to talk about it, but just, nattered, just had a little bullshit and just said like, because I wanted to see her and I was excited to see her. And then, I got home from my run and just kind of timed my run. So she pulled up right in and, gave her a hug when saw her on the driveway and just kind of said, yeah, no, I've never experienced anything like that. And then she was awesome. Just, went downstairs, I showered and then just kind of got in. She just, cuddled me better, I guess. It sounds kind of fruity, but it's just the honest truth. And that's kind of what I needed. And that I've always been this way where like my brain never shuts off ever. Like it's always going a million miles a minute. That was an extreme case, but that's always what it was. But the one thing that could always calm me down was just cuddling, which is I'm so embarrassed even to say this out loud, but that's always been true. It's always been who I am. Of like, there's nothing that turns my brain off like that. That's what's been that after that breakup. That was one of the toughest things to lose because it's just half an hour of just my brain shutting off. It shuts off. I don't know what it is. Just the physical touch of having someone against you. Like it's just, my brain just turns off. And it's such a nice feeling because it never turns, especially when you go months without that. It's like, I'm going a bit crazy right now. But it was exactly kind of what I needed with that. And it was to be able to actually kind of enjoy a night, just watch a movie, whatever. But still, every time I think about it, because my dad had said, I need you in the office like tomorrow to do, like, you got to get this done, and this done. Like, I just need that from you, right? Being completely reasonable. All he's trying to do in his head is be tough love. Like, give me a little kick in the ass. I'm like, yeah, totally get it. That's completely reasonable. I'm going to try. So I wake up the next morning and I'm like, I'm going to go for a run because I got to, get in front of this. I got to not let myself spiral. And I go for a run. And even throughout the run, I could feel like I've never ran with anxiety before. Usually while you're running, it comes back in. But as soon as I got home from the run, I already I could feel like that panic feeling coming back. And I'm so exactly what I was talking about. Like, I was so worried, like, fuck, I couldn't stop it yesterday. Like, I'm just panicked. And like, I'm just trying to get in the shower. I'm just like leaning up against my counter, like, just like, holy fuck, just trying to take deep breaths and sitting in the shower. Like, just full on, like falling right back into like that panic. And I'm like, fuck, like, and I'm thinking like, how am I going to go to the office? I don't think I can do this. Like, how am I going to go to the hockey game tonight? Like, and then I spiral on that. Like, fuck, I don't know if I can do anything. And I just kind of showered and like just got right back into bed and had to lay down again and get kind of cuddled back to the point where I could think, which again sounds so brutal coming out of my mouth, but I'm just trying to be honest with you guys. That's what it was. And just, kind of laid there. I think we maybe watched a movie and I'm just like the whole time just thinking like, what can I do? And I'm worried because I know that my dad's probably fucking spiraling. My parents are probably so scared for me. They don't know. And they just want to know I'm okay probably, but like, I just can't explain. I don't have the mental within me to like even start the process of explaining all this. And I'm kind of happy. This is why I'm happy to do this. Cause then I can kind of put it out there and they'll know exactly, and then we can talk from it after, but I won't have to go through this. The one time I'm gonna have to go through explaining all this to anybody, but I got it first I got the strength up to text Chase and just say, hey, like, I had a really bad panic attack yesterday. I don't know if I can go to the game tonight. Like, I haven't even been able to get out of bed yet. Do you think you have someone like on backup that you can go? And he's awesome. Like, for sure I'll find someone. Like, I can take Michaela. I got a million. Like, you don't worry about it. You worry about you. I think he was hoping that I would still come. And I just, kind of said, I knew I wasn't going already at that point, but I was just kind of saying, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of game time decision. Like, okay, I'll get someone lined up. And then if you can do it, like, I'd love to have, but like, and that was tough for me because I was like, the thought of missing an Oilers playoff game was so devastating to me, but like, there was no other option. So I'm so sad about it, but like, I kind of just knew that's what I needed to do. And like, I just had to recover. It was tough. And then the other thing I just knew I had to tell, I just texted my dad and said like, hey, I'm really sorry about this. I know you had those couple things you needed me to do today, but I just don't think I can get to the office today. And he just texted back, fine, which hurt a lot at the time. I was just like, oh man, whatever. didn't think about it. And then it was just a weight off my chest. Okay, like the two responsibilities that was like spiraling me so bad because I didn't know if I was going to be able to get those done today. I've got those off my chest. It's not a fix by any means. There's still so much I need to do, but now I've bought myself today and I can kind of just be okay, or like try to be okay. And that's all I need to do today. So then, just laid in bed, ordered some food, was, a lazy sack of shit, and just kind of watched hockey and what's her pickle, which is my new favorite. I'm going to probably have to call her that to her face after she hears that, because that's a great little name for her. But she had her art stuff and just did her art. She just said, well, what do you want to do today? I said, honestly, I want to watch hockey when it starts. And the rest of that, I just want to watch it's media day for the UFC. I just want to watch the media. And she's like, hey, I'm just going to do my art. I'm here if you need me, but like, you do what you want to do. And I just, watched hockey, and then Oilers game came, and enjoyed the Oilers game. And I'd also just kind of randomly, I'd taken probably like 3 weeks off of smoking weed at that point, which is probably the longest I had gone doing that. Just kind of my voice got real fucked up there, and I didn't want to wreck it. And then I'd already gone a bunch of days without, so it's like, might as well just go without it. And then being around, having something to do all the time, not, a lot of downtime to fill, or, whatever reason it was, hanging out with what's her pickle lots. I just hadn't done it. So that was kind of my reward for getting through the day. I was like, and that's how I always, like my favorite way to watch hockey. It's different in the playoffs. You want to be there for the atmosphere, but honestly, it wasn't that big of a change. I love watching a game with no one else around to bug me and just let me get so nerd. Same with fights. Like I just love being on my own. Like Chase is an exception. He can be there. I'm not embarrassed of being my full hardo self, of losing my mind over hockey or fights. He's seen it a million times before, right? Like, but just to smoke some weed and enjoy either a hockey game or fights, like that is my favorite thing in the world. And I just did that, which was also embarrassing and like paranoia inducing, because she'd never seen me smoke either. So like that was the first time that she got to see me high, and that was whatever. But, and then to watch the Oilers go out and just dominate like that, and I'm losing my mind. She didn't say a word the whole time. She's kind of sitting there giggling at me, like just telling all the storylines of hockey. Like I'm pretty much doing a podcast, one-sided solo podcast about the Oilers during the Oilers game to her. And she said like, oh, I really enjoyed it. Like you were just so in depth. Like I just was listening and enjoying what you had to say, but I don't know. I felt real embarrassed about it at the moment, but enjoyed it. And then probably about first period in, or maybe before the game, I don't know. It's all kind of a blur, but my mom texted me and said like, oh, are you not going to the game? Because I realized I hadn't even told them that. I didn't really talk to anybody. I just told Chase that I wasn't going to the game. And I said, no, I couldn't do it. Like, I'm going to watch it at home. So they're at the game. And she just said, well, we're leaving there. They went to the Kentucky Derby, which looks like a great time. They have great outfits. It looks like they're having lots of fun. They were flying out the next morning early. So she said like, we need to talk to you. We fly out tomorrow. Like we need to see you. And I'm just, full on anxiety again. Like the whole time, like I'm enjoying, and I just smoked. Like I was just like, okay, like I did my responsibilities. I'd made the hard text. Like I want to just enjoy. And that's always how I smoke. Like I always would make sure I had everything done for the day, because I need to be full checked out and just be able to enjoy it. Because if I have things to do, then it freaks me out, and the paranoia doesn't match well with it. I needs to be at like the end of the day as a reward type of thing. I can't like people talk about like wake and bake. That's my nightmare. That sounds awful. Couldn't do it. But I just smoked and I got that text from my mom. So I'm like, fuck, brutal. Now I'm going to have to do that conversation baked. I'm just spiraling in my head. Like they're going to be mad at me. They're going to, like it's going to be more of the conversation we had on Friday. Like, like I'm going to have to try and back. Like I'm just not in the place mentally to go fight for myself. And it's just anxiety the whole game. Like I was enjoying the game. It was amazing. The Oilers fucking dummied them 6-0. The game was so good. It was probably the best 2 periods of hockey I've ever seen the Oilers play. I was just sitting there in amazement of it, but kept creeping in like, fuck, when the game ends, my parents are going to come over. I have to go fucking talk to them. And I was just, nightmare. But they got home, like I heard they're upstairs. So I just kind of, made my way upstairs later. And, this was hours later. So it wasn't like I was, fully stoned on my brain trying to have this conversation either. So like, I think that made it a little easier, but just walked in and I had blown it up in my head. They just wanted to say bye to me. They just, talked a little bit about the game. Like they didn't get into anything. And, it was just kind of awkward. Me and my dad didn't say much to each other, but talked to my mom and just talked about the hockey game and just gave them both a hug and told them I loved them before they left. And that was kind of nice. I was just, I'd blown up my head. I was so worried over nothing. It ended up, I was just so worried that they were going to want to get into it and fight with me that I was just, yeah. So that was nice. And they had left Thursday, and I went into the office Thursday, and there, because that was what Ingo had said the day before. Sorry, he just texted back fine. I was like, no, whatever, just didn't say anything. He said, but there's a meeting at 1:30 that's important. I'd like you to be there for that. Can you do that? And I said, yeah, no problem. Like next day, like I'm sure. For some reason in my head, I was like, if I can just get through the day, I think tomorrow I'll be fine. And I think most of it was having, to see him again and try and explain all this stuff. Like I don't even know how long I've been going, but this is how long it would take to explain it. And just, I know he doesn't even have the patience to listen to all this, right? Like, I'm sure he'll listen to this, but like, if I tried to have this conversation, like, it's just so much to say, like, it's overwhelming. Like, he's like, I'm sure he wanted to talk to me and have this conversation. It's like, there's so much, like, and in that moment of being so overwhelmed, it's like, where do you even start? But, yeah, so went into the office, did some really good stuff for the pod. Had a really good conversation with one of our guys there, Chuck, who's, we always have great conversation. He, helped walking through it, and he knows Ingo very well and can kind of see both sides and knows where Ingo's coming from. And I think he'd even heard some of the conversation we were having before that meeting the day before. And, he's talked to Ingo, so he knows a lot about it, and had a good chat with him, and, kind of discussed some good next steps to at least get it on. And he was saying like, well, it sounds like, and I already knew this, but he picked up on it. He's a pretty astute guy. He picked up and he's like, sounds like the biggest thing you need is to hire somebody. He said, well, why don't you, make the next thing on your list of just knock off like getting an ad up for a producer for the podcast. Like, yeah, you're right. And then I went to go hop in on that meeting at 1:30, which ended up getting pushed, but really enjoyed the conversation with the guy I was supposed to do the meeting with. He's a controller accountant with Max, and just kind of what the meeting was going to be, walk through it, and kind of brought me up to speed of all this stuff that like was everything I jumped in when I talked about like really jumping in to change things. Like it was kind of the fruits of that. And we're just going through and kind of meeting. I can't say too much about it, but it was really fascinating stuff. And I really enjoyed it. Like it was nice to get back into it. Cause I do enjoy the work. It's not some of the work. It's so much of the dynamics around it. And the fact that I'm not allowed to talk about it, it has to be a big part of my life. If I'm going to let it be a big part of my life, now it can't be involved in the podcast. And that's a tough thing, because all the podcast requires is for me to be completely who I am, but all aspects of my life and not hold anything back, which is also what's been tough keeping this whole thing with this girl quiet, because then I feel like I'm living a lie, and it very much brought back all the feelings of having all this work stuff. That's a big part of my life, but I just don't talk about it on here. And then I feel like a fraud. But anyway, so yeah, really enjoyed that. And then went back and was at the office till probably, I don't know, 7:38, just kind of put the hockey game on in there too. And went on Indeed and put an ad up and got an ad up for producers. And I've already had a couple applicants. I'm probably going to call them all tomorrow on Monday and start that process, which I'm really happy about. And that was good. So did that Thursday, and then Friday. What did I do fucking Friday? Oilers game. Right. So just Friday again, worked out, did a few podcast things, had the hockey games on when they started. And then at a certain point during the day, the internet went out here, so I didn't have any hockey, and it's getting, a couple hours till Oilers game. Can't not have the hockey game. So Chase is at work at the clubhouse at the golf course he runs. So just took a little drive down the road, went and watched some hockey with him, watched the first 2 periods at the clubhouse there, or not the clubhouse, the pro shop. I just learned the difference between a pro shop and a clubhouse on Friday. That little added tidbit. And so just watching the pro shop, really enjoyed that. And it was honestly really fun for me. I talked about this once with my mom, of like, with what she does with her work. We've always known she does a good job and stuff, but during the pandemic, when everyone's working from home, you try not to, but every once in a while you overhear her inner element, and just was like, wow, like she's so good at what she does and cares so much. And just like, it's almost cool to see someone that you always know that they must be good at their job because they're a good person. And then you know, it's not surprising that they'd be good, but just to see it, it's kind of fun. I had the same thing with Chase on Friday, just like kind of watching him like teach other people, like, oh, how do you do this? How do you punch this in? How do you do this? And just kind of running his whole operation, because he always bullshits, and like, we always bullshit each other. Like, oh yeah, you run the show over there and stuff, but no, he really does. knows lots of shit. And like, it was kind of fun to watch Chase and his element of just kind of running that show and watch the game there, watch the Oilers put another full mucking on them for 2 periods. And then Chase came over the house for the third, watched the third. And then Saturday had, again, went for a run, then had, Simon come over and bring Eli, which was awesome. He was up in town just picking up a few things. He said, "Hey, you want to see Eli?" And never will I say no to that question. So I was going to go see Doctor Strange. That was my plan. I was going to get up, run, go see Doctor Strange in the afternoon. And then the fight started like 2:30, 3:30. And then I'd watch fights all day. And then maybe Chase would come over when he's done work at night and watch the last couple of fights with me. But when baby time's on the table and I get to see Eli, fuck Doctor Strange. I mean, I love Doctor Strange. He's like my favorite Marvel guy, and I'm so pumped for this movie, but that can wait. So Simon brings Eli over, just like fills my heart right to the brim. I love this kid so fucking much, guys. Like, oh, I can't even tell you. Oh, he's so much fun. He's so cute. His little smile, we get along so good. He's such a bundle of fun, and I just love like making kids laugh and making babies laugh and just like being a goofball. And I don't know, I feel like I connect with kids so much because I'm just a giant baby myself. I'm a giant man child. And I feel like they pick up on that and we just have a good time. I always call myself the baby whisperer because all the babies love me. And then Simon had to leave, and then Courtney had some friends over and I love their kid maybe just slightly less because Eli's he's family, but I love this kid as much as you can love someone that isn't your family. I love this kid too, and had more baby time. So much so that I missed the first couple fights because I was just enjoying the baby time so much, which is awesome. And the baby's parents, I love them too. They're great people, and it was nice to catch up with them too, but mainly the baby. So I had a great little Saturday. Watched lots of hockey, and then watched the fights. Kind of went through the fights at the very top of the show. So awesome card. And then Chase had come in from work, and he went and got my favorite fast food, Taco Bell. Brought me a fucking steak quesadilla, because he's a true friend like that, and watched the last 3 fights, the crazy Tony Ferguson front kick knockout that was just disgusting. Watched that fight that had the worst commentary. Everyone was apparently, according to the broadcasters, the worst fight of all time, and neither of them deserved the belt and all this stuff that was just driving me bananas. But I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was good. I was just so mad at the commentary. And then watched Charles Oliveira do what he did in the main event. It was crazy with Chase, and then Chase just took off. He wanted to get home, so like right after the fights ended, he took off. And I woke up this morning and had it in my mind to come do this. And did a nice run this morning. Watched some videos. Just ran on the treadmill today. It was kind of an overcast morning, and ordered some food from Chop Leaf, a nice salad and a sandwich, and it's sitting in the fridge inside. I was going to eat it before, but I know I get sluggish on them, or sluggish after eating, so I just kind of have it sitting waiting. That's my reward for once I finish this podcast. I'm still going to decide if I'm going to put this one out tomorrow, or if I'll put Hunter out and release this later in the week, or just do it. I think I might release this one. It went half decent. I was worried. I was very nervous to do this one. Very, very nervous. But I'm glad I did. It's nice to I think I already feel a little bit better getting some of that off my chest. And yeah, I'm going to feel so much anxiety putting it out, because again, like, I don't want it to show my dad in a bad light or anything, but like, I hope I conveyed my feelings on enough of like, I don't, so much of this is just about me. And like, I think it's hard for other people. Like, everyone's just in their own world, and it's hard for them to not see that. But like, I don't know. Like, the love that you have for like your family. Like I started this whole thing off, like, I love deeply everyone, like different levels. I love everyone differently, but like, there's no person that I don't love a lot. Like, it's boundless. I have so much love to give, and I love everyone else differently. Like, I love my friends differently than I love like romantic partners versus family. But like, there's so much, and like, that is never in question. I feel like it sucks so bad for that. I wish that would be apparent, because I think at times what was holding the conversation back was the fact that it was the questioning of the love. And it's like, that is never in question. You don't need to, like, at times when we're going through that and we're saying, I love you. It's like, yeah, obviously, like, that is so not in question. That never is in question. I've never questioned that once in my life. Not once, which is like, you want to talk privilege. Do you know how fucking privileged you have to be? Like, when you like just listen to podcasts, listen to people that have been through true shit, and just people around you and your friends I was listening to a podcast this morning about Dan Soder, who just has a new special. He's one of my favorite comedians. He's amazing. He was on Ari Shafir's podcast, Skeptic Tank, and he was talking about his dad, who's an alcoholic and going through all this stuff and always missing his baseball games and stuff, and how much you question love. Like, to sit here and say that I've never once in my life questioned the love of my parents, like just how far out ahead of the game you are to have that alone, let alone all the amazing traveling and stuff that they did for me, and just the amazing parenting to make me this person I am today that I'm so proud of. Like that is real privilege to have that. And that's amazing. And that's what gives me the confidence to be able to put this out, even though it might be uncomfortable. I know that like there's no question that like what we have could never be ruined, right? And I just think that's an amazing thing. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that's a nice way to end it too. Yeah, if you could follow the social medias for the Von Dubcast, like I say every week, if you could share it with someone, that always really helps. Passing these along, word of mouth. Nothing makes me feel better when someone reaches out and says, "Hey, I really enjoy your podcast. So and so showed it to me," and just like, man, to have someone enjoy what you like and to have that passed on by someone else, like that is just such a cool feeling. And check out Oilers Uncensored. It is the best Oilers podcast. It's on the same feed as the Von Dubcast. Show your friends. I heard a couple of people saying like, "Oh man, if the Oilers match up against Calgary in the second round, I'm gonna have to get back into this. I'm gonna have to really dive in deep in the Oilers." And I'm just like, well, there's a nice new podcast for you to jump right in that will get you right into the thick of things and it's going to be a joy to listen to. And that playoff breakdown, even if you're not an Oiler fan, we cover every series. And it's really great. I think you guys are going to love it. And other than that, have just a great week, and I will see you guys in the next one. That's her. Bye. 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 Bye.